What is going on in the mind of Russian analysts close to Vladimir Putin? How do they realize, how do they understand the situation with the Trump administration? Because we know if something happens to Vladimir Putin, we're going to have a nuclear war. There is no way out. Whoever going to replace him, he's going to bring a nuclear war. He's going to attack London. He's going to attack all these decision makers in Europe. What is your take on that? And how far they want to go?
Well, I mean, this is one of the fundamental discussions. This is why I go to Russia, just so everybody understands, so I can have these conversations and talk to people. I just finished doing a very lengthy interview with Sergei Karaganov. He's a prominent Russian political scientist. He's a man who's very anti Russian interaction with the West. He believes that Russia should pivot to the East and work with China, that there's no future for Russia in the West because the West is an untrustworthy negotiating partner. He's 100% correct. But here's the thing. He believes that the West is bluffing. I mean, he's a prominent believer. He doesn't believe in nuclear disarmament. This is where he and I have clashed in the past because I'm an advocate, or at least I have been. I don't know where I stand today. I'm an advocate for meaningful disarmament. But from the Russian perspective, how could you possibly get involved in meaningful disarmament with an American negotiating partner who's untrustworthy? Because the key to disarmament is the mutual benefit of the pact and the binding nature of the pact. And the United States just can't be trusted at all. And so rather than limit your nuclear force, I mean, if anything, the behavior of the United States promotes the notion of Russia enhancing its nuclear deterrent, expanding its nuclear capabilities. Not the direction I want to go, but I understand it. But Karaganov believes that the United States is bluffing, that the United States will never use nuclear weapons to defend Europe, and that if Europe continues to pose an existential threat to Russia, that Russia should use nuclear weapons against Europe. And he wrote a piece a couple of years ago where he said the United States is not willing to trade Boston for Poznan, meaning that Russia can drop a nuke on Poznan and the United States will do nothing. That's a hell of a statement, a hell of a gamble. This is a man who has sat next to Vladimir Putin. This is a man who participates in the Valdai Club. And people listen to this and they say, oh, that's the hardliners advising Vladimir Putin. But I think that we need to understand that Sergei Karaganov is not the government, that the Russian government is actually acting as if they believe that the United States would use nuclear weapons to defend Europe, and that Russia is vulnerable to American nuclear weapons attack. And there's a huge hesitancy inside Russia, a weakness that's being exploited successfully by the United States and Europe. I mean, Russia keeps, publishing red lines that keep getting crossed, and people like myself and others assess and say, well, that's because Vladimir Putin is very pragmatic, and that ultimately he's going to do what needs to be done to get the job done, come hell or high water. And if Europe pushes him, then he could use nuclear weapons. But I think this is up to debate right now. I mean, I haven't made a conclusion. I'm not sitting here calling Vladimir Putin, a flake. I personally believe that he's not, but I do believe that he's being advised by people anybody who believes in the spirit of Alaska today should be fired. There is no spirit of Alaska. That is the spirit of submission, the spirit of surrender. And now the Russians need to, reflect on the reality of this rogue nation, the United States, and how do you contain this rogue nation? You don't contain it through friendship. You don't contain it through diplomacy. You contain it through strength. That's the only thing the United States understands is strength.
Hey folks, once again, the show going to start after this video, but let me just say something here. This video is being played for the purpose of Black nation, and for the purpose of the African continent, and for the purpose of the African leaders. So as you can see, you heard a narrator, right? What the United States believe in, right? The United States does not believe in diplomacy. It baffles. I mean, we keep playing all these things, right? The United States does not care about diplomacy, global, village, global this, global that, global that. They don't care. The United States don't care about friendship. What the United States care about is control. The United States control you. The United States foreign policy. Those are the things they care for. They don't care about diplomatic things. It is African leaders who care about those things. Oh, diplomatic. No diplomatic. What they care about is control. What they care about, in fact, fear. When they see that you have fear, they don't want you to be powerful. Okay? What the United States fear is challenge. When you challenge the United States, that's what they fear you. What the United States fear is you being powerful. All right? If you are not powerful and if you're afraid, they take advantage of you. Now, this is a former U.S. Marine weapon inspectors. Okay? Scott. He's the one speaking. I'm not the one. He's a former U.S. Marine. So, being that he's been in our field, he's already telling you what the United States fear and what the United States does not fear. He's telling you the United States does not care about diplomacy. They don't care. It's all fallacy. They do not care. What they fear is you being independent, that you can defend yourself. That is what they fear.
And now the Russians need to, reflect on the reality of this rogue nation, the United States, and how do you contain this rogue nation? You don't contain it through friendship. You don't contain it through diplomacy. You contain it through strength. That's the only thing the United States understands is strength. It will act where it senses weakness. And right now, the fact that the United States boarded a Russian flag tanker in an act of piracy means they sense weakness on the part of Russia. And they will continue to push as long as they perceive weakness. Russia, at some point in time, needs to have a demonstration of strength. And sadly, this probably means some sort of military conflict with the United States, hopefully contained. But again, you committed an act of piracy against a Russian ship. The penalty for pirates is usually being sunk. I'm not promoting that. I'm an American. I don't want any harm to come to Americans. But my God, the Coast Guard just committed an act of piracy. It's time for Russia to draw a line and say, no more. You've gone as far as you're going to go. from here on in, if you take an action, there will be a Russian military response, and we're willing to take it as far as you want to go. I mean, if you'd like me, I can put my entire strategic nuclear force on, combat alert, if you want to play that game. Right now, the United States believes that Russia will never do this, that Russia has no intention of doing this. Russia can't do it. And so the United States is going to push and push and push. And you have insane people like Pete Hegseth, who just thinks that, my God, because we put 200 JSOC personnel into Caracas, we can do anything. Now we put some JSOC people on board a Russian tanker. We can do anything. And you have people like Scott Bessent who actually believe that we can sanction Russia into collapse. And that's what he is doing. Trump has not embraced a policy of lifting sanctions on Russia. Trump has embraced a policy of sanctioning Russia into collapse. That is the policy of the Trump administration. Russia needs to wake up to this, and that is in fact the policy. We aren't looking for a way out of Ukraine. We're looking to defeat Russia strategically in Ukraine. And we're doing that by dragging this conflict.
So now again, you understand the war in Ukraine, right? I'm not going to go into deep, no. But again, you understand who is fighting the war in Ukraine. You just heard from Scott, all right? You understand who is now fighting the war in Ukraine. If you are not understand, then I don't think I can go further than that, all right? We are here to discuss Africa. But again, now you understand who is fighting the war in Ukraine. You understand who is fighting Russia. Now, I can't explain further, all right? We are here to discuss Africa, but I'm just playing this video because we're going to use part of this video, right, as we dive into the discussion about Africa, all right? Now, let's continue.
Conflict out, and blaming this on Putin, saying the sanctions can't be lifted because of this in hopes of generating a fifth column inside Russia for that purpose. What does Vladimir Putin have to think about today? Let's look back on this now. The drone attack against Russian strategic nuclear bombers was an attack that was carried out by the Central Intelligence Agency together with MI6. The CIA has been working with Ukrainian intelligence since 2015 to develop resources inside Russia for these very kinds of attack. To carry out an attack like this, it requires, the ability to identify facilities of interest, to be able to rent them, operate them under the radar, to acquire vehicles. Look, it's called advanced force operations. You're in Iran right now. You do know what we did in Iran before the failed hostage rescue attempt. We sent in a special operations team covertly. Dick Meadows led it. They rented warehouses. They rented trucks. They rented safe houses. And they drove these trucks around. They did reconnaissance. And basically, Delta Force was supposed to take helicopters, land outside of Tehran. The trucks were to meet Delta Force, and the Delta Force would be trucked in on Iranian trucks to the embassy, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where they would launch their assault. And then the helicopters would come in, lift them out, take them to an airfield that would be seized by the Rangers, etc. But we had people on the ground in Iran doing this. Fred, I can't remember, Rouge, I think his last name was. He was an Air Force junior enlisted man at the time, Iranian, a Persian speaker. He was.
So again, you heard what Scott is saying, right? You have U.S. Marine undercover, right? Detective, right? In people country. Now you heard, but that was Iran. What they were doing there. And then working with whosoever they need to work with, right? To undermine whatsoever the government, whatsoever, and think for their strategic interests. You heard it. Now, why am I saying this? You see it in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. The leader of that region, right, of those three nations, what they did, they taken out foreign missionary foreign NGO. And we have some stupid, dumb Africans sitting there saying that's against human rights. Why is he running out foreign NGO or a foreign organization? Why is he running out human rights? Blah 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 blah. Do you see what these people do? This is Scott Ritter. This is what he's saying when they got ready for the operation in the Middle East whatsoever. They have U.S. Marine on a cover operation. You heard what he said, and they were there on the ground doing all of these things, getting ready for things, how to do things. So you see it. So if you see these people in your country, they are not NGO. They are not there to help you. They are there against you. But let's continue. There's not a topic. I'm just playing this so that because this video also going to help us. Like I said, we play some of these videos. We're not going to go down deep into it, but we're going to connect it to Africa. You see how it is being played in Africa.
With them as a linguist, he got left behind. I mean, when the thing went bad, he got left behind, and Fred had to make his way out on his own.
So now what Scott is saying here, right? The people that was on the ground in Iraq, right, that was working for the CIA undercover, right? Those NGO whatsoever and things. Now, when the mission failed, they left him behind, and then he got stranded. He had to find his way out. Listen to the story.
He made it to Turkey, but if he got caught, death. I later met Fred. Fred became a helicopter pilot for Task Force 160 for the U.S. Army Special Operations Forces, and he flew missions with me in Iraq as a weapons inspector. But the point is, this is what we do. This is how we operate. The CIA and the British understand, again, the decade of 1990s, we bought everybody, especially the British. The British went out and bought everybody, and they put them on the payroll. And there is a significant system in place in Russia today that the CIA controls. These are safe houses. These are the ability to generate income if necessary under the radar, so you don't have infusions of capital that can be traced. You have people working, earning money, banking that money, so it's there in the system. So when you rent a warehouse, you're not receiving $10,000 from outside that's then used to rent away and raising a red flag. You're just another business person renting a warehouse, and that's what they did. And then they built.
So you heard that. These are CIA in those organizations. You see it? These are CIA undercover detectives in those organizations in Africa. So you see what Scott is saying, what they do in other parts of the world. So we are talking about Africa now. These are not NGO. These are not organizations coming to help you. These are undercover detectives. These are CIA. They are there to gather information. These are secret intelligence agencies. They are there to gather information on your government. They are there to gather information on your nation. They are there to put a warring faction together in our country. They are there to support terrorist activities in our country. They are not there for you. They are not. So you see the game. And then when Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso say we should come together, now we understand the game. We don't need a foreign interference. We don't need NGO. We can take care of ourselves. Then you see some stupid, dumb Africans. Oh, if we allow NGO to go, how are we going to survive? This, that, blah, blah, blah. How did you live before NGO came to Africa? How did you live before the 1600s, before the so-called white men went to Africa, before the so-called Christianity went to Africa? How did you live before, how they call it, St. Marco went to Africa? How did you live before Episcopal Church went to Africa? How did you live before the Lutheran went to Africa, the Methodists went to Africa? Because all these organizations, right, they are all white supremacy organizations, churches that was created in the 1800s. All on the purpose of white supremacy, white, how they call it, supremacy agenda against the African masses. You hear what Scott is saying? He's laying down the framework that there is no diplomacy. There is no diplomacy. It's actually influence. And now when we have African leaders who understand the game, and then you have some stupid, dumb African leaders on the African continent undermining those Africans who understand the game.
Built a drone production factory, and next thing you know, they launched this attack against Russian strategic. This was a test of Russia, because Russia had published, a strategic nuclear doctrine that said if you attack our nuclear infrastructure, we're going to huff and puff and blow your house down. And Russia did jack shit. Russia went, oh, okay, we're going to shrug it off as a non-event. It was a test. Now, apparently, Donald Trump calls up Vladimir Putin, gets a phone conversation with him, and then says, hey, hang on, I'll call you back. and then authorizes a drone attack that could only have taken place with the CIA and support. And at the same time, just so you understand, we were hoping something would happen, because the CIA had already worked with the New York Times and Wall Street Journal weeks in advance to prepare a story published that day. Guys, you do understand that.
So again, you heard what Scott said about the New York Times. All these Western media, they work with the government. So now when you understand, when the Shaharian nation are saying, we do not want Western media, we do not want Western writers in our country, because they are writing these stories and not getting information from us. How will you keep Western media in your country when these Western media are working with the terrorists? When these Western media are taking report from the terrorists, not from the government. They are taking report from the terrorists to make the government look ugly. And this is what we're going to get into today. All right, we're going to get into this today. So you heard it. The New York Times, of all New York Times, working with the government to publish an article against the Russian government, to tarnish it, and then publish it. You heard that? We are just speaking the obvious here. This is what exactly they've been doing on the African continent. This is what exactly they've been doing to African nations, to African leaders. This is what exactly they've been doing. These are the synagogues of Satan the Bible speaks about. These are the synagogues of Satan the Bible speaks about.
That didn't happen by accident. The New York Times published a piece that was based upon the CIA giving away deep, dark secrets about how they operate and what they're doing in Ukraine. And they published it the same day, because it was supposed to be the CIA's plan, got Putin or scared Putin or make Putin run, but it's something that's been going on a long time. Instead, they had to modify, saying, but we've been doing this. Vladimir Putin was targeted by Donald Trump. There's no other way to spin this. No other way to spin this. Donald Trump targeted Vladimir Putin. Maybe not with the intent to kill, because, Trump's like, well, we didn't target his residence, just a facility nearby. So what signal were you trying to send, Donald, to strike a facility nearby? That I can get you anytime I want to, and therefore you need to piss your pants every time America says jump. You need to say how high, Mr. President. Caligula, what do you want me to do? That was the signal he's trying to send to Putin. Now, apparently the Russians were smarter and they caught him out. And the Russians know. This is the thing. The Russians turned over a chip to the defense attachés that has data on it that proves that they were targeting Vladimir Putin, and it proves who was providing the intelligence. I mean, I could spend a long time telling you how this gets reverse engineered. The Russians handed over an intact chip, and they just said, we'd like you to take a look at it. But what the Russians are really saying is, we know everything. We know everything. We know what you did. All right, so now they sent that signal, but unless that's backed up with something, it's meaningless because Trump's, this cult of personality is surrounded by nothing but yes men. Ha ha ha, Mr. President, we almost got him. Good job, Mr. President. You sure showed him a thing or two. The CIA's patting itself on the back, headset saying, see how strong we are. Rubio's like, yeah, I'm not afraid of Russia, and all this stuff. You have to respect Vladimir Putin because he is a sober leader, a sober-minded leader, a pragmatic leader, but he's dealing with a madman, a literal madman, who right now there are no checks and balances to the actions of this madman. Again, I'm not here to advise the president of Russia, but I am here to tell him as an expert analyst, you're being played like a fool by the president of the United States. I hope you understand that, you accept it, and you take appropriate actions. But if you believe for a second that there's the spirit of Alaska, if you believe for a second that this is just the bad influences on Trump, that Steve Witkoff can appeal to the better side, Witkoff is part of the problem. He's not part of the solution. Witkoff is empowering a fifth column inside Russia that's designed to take you down, Mr. President. You've been warned.
Scott, you've been to Russia. How did you find the differences in this part of society? You've just mentioned a little bit of what's going on in Russia and Witkoff, the role of Witkoff and his team to somehow make differences within the society. But how influential that could be for a Russian president? I'm talking about internally, inside Russia.
How could this be weaponized against Putin?
Yeah, exactly. How is that possible to weaponize that against Vladimir Putin? Because we know the system. Let's say
you're the governor of Novosibirsk Oblast region, your most powerful economic engine in Russia, and this opportunity that Witkoff is dangling out there, that Dmitry is dangling out there, has the potential of, giving you the ability to control contracts, control development, and suddenly you're looking at your future going, man, Vladimir Putin is, 70 some odd years old. I'm 40s. I could be the next president of Russia. I could become the economic engine of Russia. I could be the guy that Putin turns to, and I could be the next president. And so I'm all excited about this. And now you've planted that thought in his head that he's relevant, that he's somebody, and begins talking to people, other people, including the FSB, the local FSB. They use them then to silence opposition, which they're doing right now. And it's not just Novosibirsk, but it's others. The second you start talking about the development of Russian resources, the governors, the local government of the regions that have those resources have a vested interest in this possibility, because a lot of that potential is dormant right now because Russia lacks the capacity to act on its development. Was able to shut down vectors of control, non-governmental organizations, column to achieve our ultimate objective. And again, I'm just saying this as loud as I can. The United States has been seeking to remove Vladimir Putin from office since the moment Vladimir Putin became president. It's a 25-year process in place. Come on, guys. Joe Biden went to Moscow in March of 2011 and told the Russian people, the opposition, straight up, it's not a good idea for Vladimir Putin to come back and be president of the United States. That's not a good idea. It's not good for Putin. It's not good for Russia. Could you imagine Dmitry Medvedev coming to the United States, and having a meeting in New York City with a bunch of bankers and stuff? Hey, it's not a good idea for J.D. Vance to run for president. Not a good idea. Not good for J.D. And not good for America. We think that the person that should be the person we pick. Our person. Americans would go, "Are you high? Get out of here!" But Joe Biden did it in broad daylight, because that's what we were doing. We were undermining Russia. We've been undermining him forever. We don't like Vladimir Putin. We don't want to work with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin represents everything that we hate. You see, we were happy in the 1990s when Russia was on its knees, crawling to us for crumbs. Oh, that made us so happy. And then Vladimir Putin taught Russia to stand up. We're like, whoa, what are you doing? Russia's not allowed to stand up. We won the Cold War. Get back down on your knees, Russia. Behave.
And you see, right? This is exactly the same thing that is going on in the Sahel region. The West does not care about African, about the people in that region. What they fear is Black unity. What they fear is African unity. What they fear is African people coming together, uniting and having a coordinated army, military and coordinated voice of one interest. That is what they fear. They are not afraid because Black people. No. They are afraid of the coordination between Africans and Africans. Period. That is what they are afraid of. Because with unity, with collaboration, they will not get the resources. And it is only because of the resources. They didn't go to Africa because they love Africans. When they came there, did they love you? No, they enslaved you. When they came there, did they love you? No, they colonized your continent. When they came there, did they love you? No, they killed your leaders. Up to current time, they killed Gaddafi. Was it out of love? It was never out of love they killed Gaddafi. It was never out of love they killed Thomas Sankara. It was never out of love for African people they killed Patrick Lumumba. It was never out of love they killed Amilcar Cabral. It was never out of love, folks.
Peel. And Russia went, no, we're going to stand up. And then Putin taught them to love themselves, because there was a period of time in the 90s where Russia stopped loving itself. Russia went, oh, we're so bad. We're so inferior. We have to do what the West tells us to do. We have to be like the West. We want to be like the West. We want all the West stuff. Make us like the West. Please, we'll do anything to be like the West. But now Putin went, hey, Russia's one of the great civilizations. Why don't you start being proud of being Russian? And the Russians looked around and went, yeah, we're pretty cool. And today the Russians are standing on their 2 feet, fully exercised, very proud of who they are. And we don't want this. We don't want to deal with Russia that is Russia. We want Russia to be defeated, supine, compliant, weak. We can't handle a Russia that stands on its own 2 feet and says we're proud of who we are, because the biggest threat Russia poses now is the fact that they don't want to be like us, because that's how we control the world. That's how American hegemony works. We convince the relevant societies that you're inferior, that the only way that you can get a seat at the table is to be like us. We did it in Iran. We're doing it in Iran. Come on, guys. All those fancy Western stores. Come on, Iranian women, because we know who runs Iran. It's the women, just like they run everything in the world. And you can get that nice dress, and you can wear this nice makeup at home, and you can do this, that, and the other thing. We can take you to London so you can go shopping and all that stuff. Just tell your husband, hey, those Ayatollahs, they got to go. And then the wife whispers in your, honey, the Ayatollahs got to go. And then you get demonstration in the streets. That's a simplistic, comedic.
Again, so you heard that when they got ready for the Iranian Prime Minister, Ayatollah, right? They said he got to go. What did they do? They organized protest in Iran. They organized protests in Iran. They funded protests in Iran for the people to rise up believing that their prime minister was XYZ. And once they saw the protest, couple of weeks, they play on CNN, they play on BBC, they play on ABC saying that, oh, the people are protesting against their prime minister. The prime minister is this. Then after they did that, they're bound. They move in, thinking that because of how the people protest or they're protesting, if they move in, they cause any chaos, the citizens of Iran was going to back them. You see the game? But they turn against them, and that is what Scott is explaining here. They funded a protest. They organized a protest against the people government after they have planned for the government to be removed. But you see, they have tried that with Putin, with Russia. It never worked, because The Putin have instilled in the minds of Russian, we are Russian and we have to be like Russian. We don't have to be like American. We don't have to be like the other part of the other West. We are Russian, we should be like Russian. And you see, this is what exactly Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso are trying to instill into their people, into the citizens that listen, we are Saharian, we are African, we should behave like African, we should control everything. And now the enemies don't want to see them. And then you have some stupid, dumb-headed Africans leader on the African continent. Some of them understand, but they just want to be stupid.
Thing, but that's how it works. We play to the base desires of people. And instead of Iranian women waking up every morning going, I'm proud of being Iranian. I'm proud of my religion. I'm proud of my culture. I stand on my own 2 feet as a proud representative of Iranian society. See, that's what the West doesn't want. We want Iranian women going, oh, I want to be like those ladies in London. I want to be like those ladies in Paris. I want to go to New York because Iran sucks. No, same thing in Russia. We don't want the Russians looking around going, I'm proud of Russia. I'm proud of being a Russia. I think Russia's great. We want Russians to go, oh, Russia sucks. We want to be like the West. We need American help. We need America to send in their advisors like they did in the 1990s so that our society collapses. This is the goal and objective of the United States government. It's not just what Trump wants. Trump just happens to have a bunch of maniacs in power now who believe they can actually follow through on this. But it's been what the United States has wanted for 25 years. And Vladimir Putin has to wake up to this reality. Look, I have to wake up to this reality. I'm the guy that just spent the last 2.5 years traveling to Russia promoting U.S.-Russian friendship. What a load of shit I was selling. Oh, America wants to be your friend. No, we don't, apparently. And as long as the American public is infected by Russophobia, you can't trust the American people. There's individuals like myself and others who believe in this, but we're informed individuals. But until you break through the Russophobic hold on how Americans receive their information through academia, through the mainstream media, through government propaganda, the American people are infected. I mean, the stupidity I read in your chat and every other chat, I don't blame just you. The stupidity of the people in here who know nothing of Russia but act as if they do because they read a tweet by by Steve Witkoff or something. They're dumber than shit. To know Russia, you have to go to Russia. If you haven't been to Russia, if you haven't, dived into that, you don't know shit about Russia. So stop pretending you do. But this is the problem. America is controlled by ignorant people. It's sustained by the minds of ignorant people who think they know something and they know nothing whatsoever. And as long as this system exists, why should Russia be friends with us? I mean, Russia should always hold the door open and say, if you want to accept Russia on Russian terms, Russia will be your friend. But I think the day of Russia waiting for the West to come on over is over. Shut the damn door. Make us knock. Don't hold the door open for us. Shut the door. Seal yourselves off. We're your enemy. And
Yeah. And exactly this is what Africa going to do. Africa going to shut the door. Africa going to shut the door on those who do not want to see Africa. And Africa going to open a door on people who want to do, fair business partnership with Africa. And people that don't want to do fair business partnership with Africa, Africa going to shut the door on them. Regardless what they say. This is Africa moment, and this is Africa time. Africa will shut the door on people, on nation, on continent who do not want to do a fair share business with Africa. Period about that. There is no mission war about that. There is no fear about that. Africa will shut the door on any nation, on any continent that do not want to do a fair share business with Africa. Africa will shut the door on nations like that to sanction Africa. If Africa does not agree to their inhumane policy, Africa will shut the door on continent, on nation that always want to subjugate Africans in Africa. Africa will shut the door on them. We don't care what part of the world we sit and speak. Africa will shut the door on any nation that try to intimidate the African continent. Africa will shut the door on you. Africa will shut the door on any nation that try to intimidate and humiliate any African nation and the African continent. Africa will shut the door on you. We are not meeting our war. This is not colonial time period again. Now we know who you are. You are not nobody. You are not God chosen people. You are not chosen by God. You are not anything. We have waken up from our spare of silence. We have waken up from our spare of fear. Africa will shut the door on any nation that does not want to do fair share business with Africa. Africa will shut the door on any nation that try to corrupt Africa. Africa will shut the door on any nation who seek the interest of taking African leader, revolutionary leader, Africa who love the African continent to the edge. Africa will shut the door on you. Africa will shut the door on any biased human rights organization nation. Africa will shut the door on you. Africa will shut the door on people who veto Africans' interests. Africa will shut the door on you. Africa will shut the door on any nation that have a veto power that always veto African interests. Africa will shut the door on you. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Frank. This is WCC, which is colonialism. And today's topic, folks, it says, is Corinne Dufka working with the terrorist group in Africa? Is Corinne Dufka working with the terrorist group in Africa? Ibrahim Traore is right. Ibrahim Traore was right of Human Rights Watch and the mainstream Western media. Ibrahim Traore was right. Folks, this lady called Corinne Dufka, we are asking a question. Is she working with the terrorist group in Africa? Now, folks, I told you, when we come up here, we don't come with opinion because we know who we are targeting. We come with facts. We do our research and come out here. If we don't have it, we don't talk about it. Some of the things we say here, it is being directed to us by the spirit world. Some, not all. And some we say here, it is being directed to all by we doing our own research. Now, this today, it was not directed by the spirit world. It was directed by doing our own research. All right? Let me say that clear. But some of the things we say here, we say it because it is being directed to all by the spiritual, by our forefather. Now, let's get to the first article, not to waste your time. Let me see here. Let's get to the first article. Now, folks, this is the lady right here. This lady you see on the dashboard here, she's an American. And she's called Corinne Dufka. Formerly, she worked with the so-called Human Rights Watch, or Human Terrorist Watch, or Human Rights Watch, I don't know. But she worked with them previously. And she wrote a lot of articles against Africans' interest. You see, this is why when Ibrahim Traore is saying, we don't want these foreign organizations in the Sahel region, and people don't understand. Look, by now we should believe, the leader in the Sahel, when they make decision, we should believe them. By now, we should believe Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, when they make decision, right? When they take step, we should believe them. Absolutely. We should believe them. You know, the people that we should disbelieve, people like Tinubu, people like Ruto, when they make decisions, we shouldn't believe them. When they make speeches, we shouldn't believe them. When they pass some bills, we shouldn't believe them until we see the reality. People like Tinubu, people like Ruto. Sorry, guys, receiving call. Yeah. So people like Ruto, when they make decisions, we shouldn't believe them. When they give speeches, we should not believe them. People like William Ruto, people like Tinubu, people like Al-Assad, right? We should not believe these people. But the three Shahadian nation, when they make decisions, we should believe them. All right? Now, let's go here and see something. This lady been undermining African interests. This lady been writing article speaking for the T group in Africa, speaking for the terrorist group in Africa. This lady been writing article, she been in touch with the T group. The T group, the terrorist group, been giving her information. And she been writing article. While serving as Human Rights Watch. While being a photographer. She been on the African continent working with the T group, writing article on behalf of the T group, trying to justify what the T group are doing in Africa. Folks, I'm not making a story. This lady tried to justify the T group in Africa. She justified the T group killing, the T group killing innocent people in Africa, in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, and other part of Africa. She justified it as it was good. This lady you see on the dashboard here, do a research on her. We need to bring out this lady. She justified the killing of innocent people in Africa by the T group. Look here, folks. Let me see if I can pull something out here. Let's see here first. Let's see something here. Look here. Look what she wrote here. So, as you can see, right, these are all articles she wrote here against Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. So, as you can see, she said another political detention in Mali, another political detention in Mali. This is an article against the Malian government, okay? But she called them jointa, and in favor of the T group. And then, as you can see, this is another article she wrote here against the Burkinabe government in favor of the T group. According to her, she's, as you can see the headline, Islamic latest Sahel massacre target Burkina Faso. Now, let's click here and read this article. Let me see if you can see it. Very good. Very good. So, you see this article here, right? Let's see here. Let's see what she wrote in this article here. And see, look, this lady she's a witch. This lady is a demon. This lady is a devil. This lady is evil. She need to die and go to hell. So listen right here. Islamic latest Sahel massacre target Burkina Faso. More than 500 civilians killed. She said more than 500 civilians killed by armed Islamists in the Sahel since earlier 2021, right? More than 500. The T group killed more than 500. But in the article, she justified the killing. Folks, this lady is wicked. In the article, she justified the killing of more than 500 civilians by the T group. She justified it. And see her reason. Let's go to her reason. All her article that she wrote it in favor of the T group. She wrote it in favor of the T group. Let me see here. There is something that I just want to get to the main point quick, and be out. Now, before I can even read here, right? Previously, we have gave a report, right? When that so-called Yusla from Sudan went and sat down with Ibrahim Traore and came and wrote some stupid BS article, right? And you see what happened. You know, the Fulani, right? The Fulani were the people that was trying to use, right? And we showed a video before. There's a Fulani lady in France that the French government or authority, right, they have been alleged. Let me put it that way. They were trying to use her, and she even came out with article, with documentary about against the Burkinabe government or against the people in the Sahel region, that they were killing civilians and all of those things, right? Now, look at what this lady wrote here. The attack bring over 500. The grand total of civilians killed by armed Islamic group in the Sahel since area 2021. She's taking it from, she's taking it from recent time, the time these people came to power. She's not taking it from the time the French government were there, the African, okay, the American government. Let's just put it that way, American government there, because if their army was there, their government was there. The Canadian government there, because the Canadian government was there. All these groups, they were there. So they're not taking a report from that time, because at that time, the T group was still there killing people. All right, but they are taking a report after all this government has gone. All right, okay. So earlier 2021, according to Human Rights Watch research, the epicenter of the worsening violence is the porous Tri-Border region of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. In Niger, villagers have been killed as they tended their cattle. These are the Fulani now. As they tended their cattle, took part in religious ceremony, dark tea, and slept in their homes. Now, she is not blaming the T group. No, she's not blaming the T group here. She is not blaming the T group here. She's blaming the three leaders, Ibrahim Traore, Tiani, and Keita. She's blaming them because she's taking a report from the time these people came to power. So she's blaming these people, these leaders, not the T group. It's bigger. Just watch. We have more article to read. Just watch here and see. See her narrative. Okay, just watch. And then she said, this was in Burkina Faso. Then the next one, she said, in Niger, armed Islamic group killed over 300 villagers in 3 horrific attacks in the Taliban and Taboun region. Attack in May in Burkina Faso. Oduland province killed over 30 villagers, including men attending a baptism. The commander ordered the men to lie face down, then yell at his men to carry out the execution, witness said. Let's see here. There's area here I want to reach. I read. Hopefully I found it quick. Okay, now listen to this. The armed men, the armed Islamic group should end their unlawful attack. All right. Should end their unlawful attack. At the same time, look at this. Oh, look at this. Look at what she's about to say. At the same time, government security forces in the Sahel, at the same time, government security forces in the Sahel, which themselves, listen to the nonsense, which themselves have committed numerous abuses, which themselves has committed numerous abuses against suspect in custody. Now look at this. The T group killing civilians, killing innocent people. And then the government captured some of these suspects, some of these T group, and they are in government custody. So now this evil lady, this alien is saying the government of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, they should stop treating the suspect. They should stop treating the T group. At the same time, government security forces in the Sahel, which themselves have committed numerous abuses against suspects in custody and community belief to support the Islamic group, should reorganize that atrocity by their opponent, never justify their own crime. Look at this, never justify their own crime. That means Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso does not have the authority to justify who is a T group. It is the Human Rights Watch. It is Western organization. It is Western supremacy. The same people that are supporting the T group, according to numerous government officials of Washington, D.C., who are supporting the T group, who are supporting Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, ISIS. This lady is telling us these are the people who are to come and justify who is a terrorist and who is not a terrorist. Not the Malian government, not the Malian authority, not the Burkinabe authority, not the Burkinabe government, and not the Nigerian government or authority. It should be Dufka or Human Rights Watch or Western organization who should come and justify who is a terrorist. I didn't make this story up. She is saying, although the Islamic group have killed a lot of people unlawfully, this is what she said. The armed Islamic group should end their unlawful attack. All right? She is saying, even though it's unlawful, but at the same time, come on, man. Even though it is unlawful, but at the same time, government security forces in the Sahel, which themselves have committed numerous atrocities against the T group, against suspects in custody, and community belief to support the Islamic. So she also saying the people in custody are some of those people, the community believe those are terrorists. Because you imagine during this time period, right? Even recently, some of the community members, they captured some of the terrorists, they beat them to death. And they captured some of them, right? And then they took some of them to the authority. So these stupid and idiots and devious and demonic human rights advocates, so to speak, Corinne Dufka is saying some of the people in custody, they were identified by the community as terrorists, and they are in the custody of the authority. So the authority should release these people. You see what this lady is writing here, or what she wrote here? Community believe to support the Islamic group should reorganize, right? Should reorganize their atrocity by their opponent, never justify their own crime. Together with international forces, now listen to this. Together with international forces, they need to do more to protect the Sahel. Oh my God. Together with international forces. So you see the nonsense she wrote here. You see the nonsense she wrote here, right? It's deeper than this, folks. We're going to get to the main article. I just want you to understand on some things here. We're going to get to the main article, right? Don't worry. I want you to understand something here. We are going to get to the main article, all right? Now, let's go to another article here that she wrote here. Let's go to another article. We want to go to her main page, what she put there, right? What happened in Mali recently, right? The GNAB and the FLA coming together. She knew about it. She knew about it. She was part of that planning. We have the information now. We're going to show it to you people here. Okay? How it was planned. All right. And she spoke in code. Oh my God. Look, I read it. I read what I read. I read what I read. She spoke in code. And I'm going to display it here. And we're all going to take our time and read it. Now, listen to this. Shahé, atrocity by the security. See here again. See another article. Atrocity by the security forces are fueling recruitment by the armed Islamic. So she is trying to say the reason why there are more recruitment in the Sahel region with the terrorists is because of the atrocity that is being caused by the army, by the national army, by the army of Burkina Faso, by the army of Mali, by the army of Niger. She is justifying the killing of innocent people by the Islamic group. She is justifying the more recruitment of the Islamic group in the region. She is justifying the folks. I am not making a story. This is her own writing and this is her own headline. The Sahel, I mean Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, right? She is saying the Sahel, atrocity by the security of Mali, atrocity by the security of Burkina Faso, atrocity by the security of Niger forces, right? Niger forces are fueling, are the reasons there are recruitment by armed Islamic group. What? Look, folks, this is serious. This is serious. Let's continue here. See what she wrote here. See what she wrote here. After this, we're going to get to her article, right? We're going to get to the main article. So now you see here, right? The Islamic group, she made the Islamic group as the picture here, as her background. Okay? Advocating for them. Advocating for them. Because according to her, right? Because of the action, because of the atrocity, because of the human right, how they call it, inhumane activities of these security forces against the citizens, it is the reasons why there are more Islamic groups that are being created, that are being formed. That's our justification here, right? Let's go to her reading. We're going to go down here and see something. Let's see something down here. Look at something here. You see something here, right? Look what she take here. And now, she took this from 2015. Everything she's doing here, right? She's writing it from the time these three leaders came to power, took power. That's the time she's taking it. She's now going back down when you have the American government in our region, the French government in our region, the Canadian government in our region, because as long as their army were there, it is their government, it is their influence there. So she's not going beyond that. She's going after these people came to power. Since at least 2015. So you see how she started, since at least. So that means when these people came to power, things just became worse. But when how they call it, African, the French, the Canadian, the German, Mediterranean, they were in our region, things were normal. According to her. Since at least 2015, Islamic armed attack on villages, market, restaurant, convent and churches in West Africa, Sahel region have left a wake of blood, contributed to the displacement of over a million people, and reverse progress on health education. Now, she's trying to say, before 2015, the Sahel nation with France, with ECOMO, how they call it, the American military that been there, how they call it, AFRICOM, and other people, right? Things were normal in our region. Education was good. healthcare system was good. But after those people left, everything, reverse. That's what she's trying to say here. Everything reverse. And, health condition bad, education bad. But as we look right now, in the three region, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, they have one of the best educational systems currently as we speak in most African nations. They have one of the best healthcare systems currently in our region than in most African nations as we speak currently. But you see here, what she said here, right? It's deeper than that. Let's go a little bit. Now, she's about to advocate for her nations. She said France, the United States, and European Union have for years bankrolled the fight against bankroll. What she's trying to say here, right? The United States use their bank, France use their bank, Europe use their bank to fight against jihadi. They've been using their money, they've been using their resources to fight against jihadi. But they have not been succeeding. That's the first thing. So according to her, the US, France, Europe, they have been using their own resources, their bank and whatsoever to fight jihadi. But now, ungrateful African like Ibrahim, Traore, Tiani, Keita, they came, they removed the United States Army, French Army, European Army. Now they are fighting. And they are now winning. And things have reversed. Things have gone bad. That's what she's trying to say here. The United States, France, and the European Union have, for years, used their bank to fight against this group. And the humanitarian fought out with support from military operation, development aid, and a United Nations peacekeeping force. Yet, their efforts have not stopped these abusive forces with attack in recent days. Spread to Africans. So they fought out after the US left, France left, European Union left. Now the joint are left in power. I'm using a word. The joint are left in power, right? Things have become worse. That's what she's trying to say here. Now, let's see something down here. Let's see something here. All right. She said, for over a decade, I have documented the spread of Islamic armed group in West Africa. These groups allow to both Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State sought out by exploiting local governance. You see here? So what she's trying to say here, right? The Al-Qaeda, the Islamic terrorist group, the ISIS group, the Boko Haram, right? All these groups started due to exploitation of grievances by government, by local government. So you see here, due to exploitation, due to corruption. So she is not talking about Nigeria. Nigeria is not here. Nigeria is not mentioned here. She's not talking about Nigeria, right? Now, she's not talking about corruption in Togo, corruption in Liberia, corruption in Africa, corruption in Sierra Leone, corruption in Cameroon. She's not talking about none of those places. But she's talking about specific places, right? Those three regions, the terrorist group in our region that are supported by the West, and Western taxpayer money to fuel terrorist group in our region. So she is saying the reason why terrorist group in this region is because of corruption. So listen to this. It starts, right? She said, let me read it again. For over a decade, I have documented the spread of Islamic armed group in West Africa. This group, Allah, she's trying to say now, right? But this group coming together, because this report came out after the Mali incident happened. Now she's saying this group coming together to both Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State start out by exploiting local governance against government corruption, banditry, and competition over land and water to govern recruit. Listen to this. Another area here. Let me see here. Now, she said, but dozens of community leader and village chief, as well as estimate themselves, as well as the T group, have told her. So you see, she is not in communication with the government. She's not in You see why Abraham Traore, Tiani, Geita said, or these people should leave? They are not in communication with Abraham Traore. They are not getting their data or their information from the government, but they are getting their information from the terrorist group. They are getting their information from the Fulanese who are against the government, who are part of the terrorist group. So you see here, but dozens of community leaders, village chiefs, as well as estimate themselves, have told Connie, have told her that it is vengeance. So you see, it is vengeance over extrajudicial execution by other abuses, execution and other abuses by soldiers and pro-government militant that more than anything else. So you see, she is justifying the Islamic group killing. So what she's saying here, when she spoke to the T group told her the reason why we are doing this is because of the extrajudicial killing by the government, execution by government, and other abuses by the government on citizens. Abuses by the government on citizens, abuses by soldiers and pro-government militant. That means people who believe in the government. They are against the T group, so to speak. So you see here, let me read it again. But dozens of community leaders and village chiefs, as well as estimate themselves, have told me that it is vengeance over extrajudicial execution and other abuses by soldiers and pro-government militant that more than anything else is driving recruit into the extremist rank. Is driving recruit into the extremist rank. So she is justifying why there are growing number of how they call it or jihadi or extremists in the region. Now she wrote these things because they were trying. What they were trying to do, they were trying to take Ibrahim Traore to RCC. They were trying to take Ibrahim Traore to the RCC. And then if they take Ibrahim Traore to the RCC, this will be their justification, not for the RCC to go against the terrorists, not for the RCC, right, to go for Ibrahim Traore or to go on the side of Ibrahim Traore. So these were not evidences they were putting together to say the reason why they are jihadi is because of what the government is doing against the people. So this was report that they were coming out. That is why the user from that useless little child from Sudan went and wrote and said that and wrote that thing against Ibrahim Traore. Because their plan was to use it to go against Ibrahim Traore, to take Ibrahim Traore to the RCC. And then these were their report that it was going to come out with. Because at the end of the day, it had been alleged they didn't want to support the terrorists. They didn't want to support the jihadi. And we're going to prove that today here with her post, her hearing post that we recruited, that we formed. We're going to put that here. So they were going to use this against Ibrahim Traore. They was going to use this against the Shahidian nation to bring the Shahidian nation down. Because you know what? They had tried several times to assassinate these leaders. They had tried several times to assassinate Ibrahim Traore. They have bribed people to assassinate Ibrahim Traore. So it was not working. They couldn't penetrate the Burkinabe. They couldn't penetrate the Malian. They couldn't penetrate the Nigerian, the common citizen. They couldn't penetrate them. Like how they did it to Thomas Sankara. Like how they did it to Patrick Lumumba. They couldn't penetrate the citizens to get to Ibrahim Traore, to get to Tiani, to get to Keita. They couldn't penetrate the citizens. So every coup they tried to fail. They couldn't pass through the army. Everything they tried through the army, they brought the army, they failed. They brought the army with millions of dollars, they failed. So the next option was we have to come to the Human Rights Watch and write against them and then use it to the ICC. And then she said, yes, even though the Islamic group are killing, they kill over dozens of people, they kill over 5 million people, all right? But it is justified because it is what the army, the citizen, and the army or the government is doing against the citizen. So how can you justify that? You say the reason why there are more recruitment in the jihadi or the Islamist group, it is because of what the government is doing against the citizen. Now, if it is because of what the government is doing against the citizen, then how can the Islamic group come and be killing over 5 million people and you justify that? How the people who are coming to fight for the citizens against the government because the government is doing extrajudicial killing and the government is killing people, then how can you fighting for the people and then come and kill over 5 million? You see how these people, they are devil? They always want to bring African leaders down and Africa down. They don't want for Africa to rise. So you see here, she's still justifying it. So she said, so why are so many men leaving their villages to join this group? Now, people in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, is it true that the Burkina B are joining the terrorist group to fight against the Burkina B? Is it true the Nigerians are joining the terrorist group to fight? So you see here, this was the article that was going to use against Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso at the RCC. So do you see the reason why we don't need to trust these people when they're writing about Africa? It is not in our interest. So she's justifying why people are joining this group. So we are asking the Burkina B, is it true Burkina Faso, you people are joining the T group? Niger, is it true you people are joining the T group? Mali, is it true you people are joining the T group against the government? Because this is what she said here. So these are the reasons. So now in a court at the RCC, this is what she's going to say. So these are the reasons why people are joining the T group against the government. And then she said, a young man from northern Burkina Faso texted me. So you see, she having this terrorist group number because she's in communication with this terrorist group. So she said, a young man from northern Burkina Faso texted me after soldier executed. So you see, after soldier, not the T group. So the soldiers just going and killing people, not the T group. So you see how she's justifying the killing of people by the T group. She's justifying the killing of people by the T group. She's justifying the 5 million people that the T group have killed. She's justifying it. A young man from northern Burkina Faso texted me after soldier executed his 78-year-old father in 2018. We found him next to the pit with 2 bullets in the head. Week later, when I was unable to reclaim him, a family member explained he has gone north and is being trained by the Islamic State as his 2 brothers and few cousins. Sources have told me, sources again, listen today, sources have told her, sources have told me he has since taken part in attack on both soldiers and civilians. So you see, justifying the T group again, that hey, the T group are killing people because what the Malian or the Burkina B or the Nigerian government are doing or did. So you see, she justifying the killing of citizens by the T group. and leaving out the T group. The T group are doing the right thing. The T group, if they kill 5 million people, it is because of what the Burkina Faso armies are doing. It is because of what the Malian armies are doing. It is because of what the Nigerian armies are doing. So you see that. So she don't even have evidence that it is true that this boy here, his 78 years old father, was killed by Malian soldier or the Burkina Faso soldier. Because according to her, somebody just gave her a report. This individual called her and say, a Burkina Faso people kill or army kill the father. So she was not even there. She don't even have evidence. It's like I hate the government and just sit there and say, hey, even if the T group killed my father or my relative, and then call her and say, hey, the T group killed my relative, I'm going to join. I mean, the army killed my relative, I'm going to join the T group. She was not there. Somebody call her. Listen to this. A young man from northern Burkina Faso had texted her while she was sitting in her comfortable home in Washington, D.C. or in America, in a state where she is. She's saying now comfortably eating burger, eating Wendy's and enjoying herself. A young man from Burkina Faso just texted her and said, hey, the Burkina Faso army killed my father, so I'm going to join the T group. Do you see that? Everything was written here. This is Human Rights Watch. She was not even in Burkina Faso. She did not even go to interview the president or the authority of Burkina Faso. No, but she sat down here. Somebody just sent her the text, and she's taking that as evidence. Now she's saying, so this guy went and joined the T group. Now he's killing civilians. It's justifiable because the Burkina Faso killed his father. Do you see that? Do you see that? Now, because of time, I'm going to take this out, right? Now we're going to get to her main article. I mean, there are a lot of things she said here in defense of the T group. So you see here, right? The killing of the young man father mentioned above is one of the hundreds. It's one of the hundreds by the security forces of the Shahid. I have documented since 2015. You see, so she took the report after these people came to power. So you see here, she was not on the scene. It was just a text message that was sent to her by someone, by another T group, by someone. And then she used that and says, just how this man father was killed, right? This is how hundreds of civilians that was killed by the Shahid forces. So you see what I was trying to do here, to take that information to the ICC court against the 3 leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. You see here, this is Human Rights Watch. Those of you that believe in Human Rights Watch, those of you so-called African, human right. This is Human Rights Watch. You see here, the killing of the young man fathers mentioned above. She wasn't there. She did not see body. It was just a text. The man did not send her body of the father. Whether the father was killed, whether he was not killed, nobody knew. But this man, according to her, this man text her now. Whether it was a text, because the text message is not here, and the individual who sent the text, his name is not here. Nothing. But she just said somebody sent her the text. She was not on the scene of seeing the father body, nothing. And she's a journalist. She was not there. She was in Washington, D.C. She was in America here somewhere sitting down, and somebody sent her the text. This individual did not send the father dead body, nothing. But according to her, the killing of the young man fathers mentioned above is one of the hundreds by the security forces. So the security forces are just going round there killing people, killing innocent people. The same people they came to power for to protect, the security forces are just going killing. So she is justifying the more recruitment of the jihadi group, killing innocent people. She's justifying it. The killing of the young men fathers mentioned above is one of the hundreds by the security forces in the Shahid. I have documented since 2015. In April, Burkina Faso security forces allegedly, so you see, allegedly, she does not have evidence. There is no link. So she even using allegedly. So that means the same way somebody sent her a message, a text, and said, my father was killed, is the same way somebody told her another news that something happened. So in April, Burkina Faso security forces allegedly executed 31 men in Djibouti. No evidence. She's saying alleged. So where she got her evidence from? Nobody know. The website, nobody know. The sources, nobody know. Allegedly, Burkinabe forces killed 31 men in Djibouti. And in June, Malian security forces were executed of killing 43 villagers. Do you see this? These killing were war crime. Well, so you see, now you see what she wrote here. So they were putting all these things together to use it against the Shahid nation, taking them to the RCC. This is what I was trying to do. But because, again, many platforms of Africans who love Africa came out to debunk these people like how we are doing here, that's why they stopped that RCC. That is why they stopped that RCC. If you can remember, I showed a video here of a representative from Burkina Faso that was at the RCC and giving report about the progress on the Ibrahim Traore government. All these witchcraft, all these demons, they were all sitting there. They were shocked when this man was giving evidence, when this man was giving information with sources and things. All these demons were sitting there. They were shocked because that is why they couldn't take the leader to the RCC, because they saw that Africans are on top of things, and this is why they hate. They don't like for Africans to do their own things, for Africans to be on top of things. So you see all these things now. So the terrorist group killing innocent people, they were not crime. But according to her, it is only crime because the security forces were killing, which of course you don't even have evidence. Because she's saying it was a text message from a young man. That's not evident. A text message is not an evidence. A text message is not an evidence. Because especially when it comes to death, there is nobody, nothing. The man did not send you his father's body. It was just a text message. That's not evident. And then she also said it have been alleged. It have been alleged, no sources. According to Human Rights Watch, you should have sources. There's no sources, but it have been alleged that the Burkinabe security forces executed 31 men in Djibouti. It have been alleged, no source. Now she said, these killing were war crime. Now you see, these killing were war crime, whether or not any of the executed men supported an armed Islamist. So now you see it. Now you see it. She's trying to say even the Islamist men that were killed by the Burkinabe forces, by the Saharian forces, it is against human rights. So according to her, this Islamic group killed over 5 million or 500 civilians. But according to her, it is not against human rights. So she justified. But it is against human rights when the Shahidi nations are killing these jihadi. So look at what she said here. She's a demon. These killing were war crime, whether or not any of the executed men, whether or not, she does not care, whether or not any of the executed men supported the armed Islamic. They were all last seen in custody of the government security forces and found hours later shot in the head or chest. Many of the killing directly follow losses after Islamist attack. So you see here, so now she still go by her justification. She said, I know over. So you see, she's in collaboration with the terrorists. She's in collaboration with the jihadi. She said, I know over 15 men from Burkina Faso. I know over 15 men from Burkina Faso and Mali who seemingly joined the armed Islamist rank after seeing a loved one executed by the security force. So wait now. So the security forces were just going around just killing people. They were just going around killing people. So you see here. So, folks, you see how these Westerners are working with the terrorists. Even their rectors, even the Human Rights Watch is working with the terrorists. The Human Rights and the Human Rights Watch, I don't even want to call their name right. The human rights, because there's nothing right here. That's why I don't want to call it human rights. There's nothing right here. The Human Bias Watch. The Human Bias Watch. I know over 15 men. Who are those 15 men? I know over 15 men from Burkina Faso and Mali who have similarly joined the armed Islamist rank after seeing a loved one executed by the security forces. A Burkinabe elderly told me they aren't joining out of religious commitment, not at all, rather to enact revenge. So she's justifying the killing that the killing these people are doing. They are doing it because they are revenge. They are on revenge. But how can they join? They be on revenge and then they themselves killing innocent people? How can they join and be on revenge and they are not revenging against the soldiers or against the government? But they are revenge, they join revenge and they're going to villages killing people. So they are trying to justify these things because they support these terrorists. Now, let's get to her article. We're not here making fun. Let's get to her article. Get to her article here. Let's get to the article. What she's saying is true. Now we're going to get to her article. The recent attack in Mali. Let's get to her article and see what she put there. It was all plain. I just brought this article out here, right, to read it so that you can see the correlation. Now you see, this is what I was trying to do to the Shahid Nation. They were putting their evidence together to take it to the RCC. They were putting their evidence together to take it to the RCC. And because it didn't work, what they then tried to do was, because they are in connection, in collaboration, in communication with the terrorists, now they decided that, listen, folks, this is not working. You guys need to come together and coordinate. Don't believe me. Let's go to her link. And in fact, this article I'm about to read, I got it from her link. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this and see here. Let me see here. Let me see. How did I record it? Let me see here. Where is it? No. Oh, why didn't take it out? I gotta go look for it. I gotta go look for it. Hold on, folks. Let me see. I think I mistakenly take it out. I took it out by mistake. I have to go look for it. I have to go look for it, folks. Sorry, I have to go look for it. I have to look for that link. Sorry, folks. I mistakenly, I took the link out by mistake. So I have to go get it. All right. So before I can go get it, let me see here. I'm going to post something out here. No, it's not this. Hold on. Cancel. I have to go get the link, the information that she was working with the terrorists, that they collaborated with the terrorists before that attack took place. Listen to this. So before I do that, let me play your music here while I go look for it. I'll be back. Let me see here. Okay.
Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Angola, Lesotho, Eswatini, Madagascar, Mauritius, Seychelles, Comoros, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Burundi, Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, South Sudan, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Benin, Togo, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Gambia, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, DR Congo, Republic of Congo, Cameroon, Gabon, Central African Republic, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Sao Tome and Principe, Egypt, Morocco, Sudan, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Africa. Simuza, we rise. Simuza, Africa.
All right, I found an article, right? I went back to my email, I pulled it out. So let's see here what this evil lady called Corinne Dufka, what she wrote here on LinkedIn page. Now, this is Corinne Dufka. As you can see, this is LinkedIn, right? This is her page. This evil lady called Corinne Dufka. She's evil. She's demonic. She's complete demonic. She's synagogues of Satan. She's very hateful. She don't love Africa. She don't love black people. She don't love African people. I pray to my ancestor the day she stepped on the land of the African continent, she will have a big leg. Her leg will get swell up. And anyway, she will go to doctor. She will go to everywhere. She will never get healed. The day she stepped on her soil, because she hate African, she hate Africa to rise. The day she stepped on a soil, on the continent of Africa, her entire leg will get swallowed like elephant. She will have an elephant legs, and she will never get healed from it. And I'm speaking to the ancestor. I'm speaking to the spirit. I'm speaking to nature, and nature is hearing me. The ancestor, they are hearing me. The day she stepped on an African continent, the day she stepped on her soil, the moment she get down from her plane and step on her soil, any part of Africa, she will have an African leg. Her leg will get swallowed like an African, or how they call it, elephant. Her legs will be big like an elephant, and she will never get healed from it. She will go to every doctor. They will do surgery upon surgery. They will tear her legs to try to make it. Will never get healed. She will live with it for the rest of her life. And it will be a painful death. She will live with it. She will live with it painfully, slowly. She will live with it. She will never get healed from it. The day she steps on her African continent, she will have an elephant legs. Let her try and get it. The only thing that she can do is to sit in the Western wall and keep receiving text messages. But the day she tried to get on her African continent, I am speaking to the spirit. The day she try and get on the African continent, she will have a big elephant legs. Her legs will be big, swelling up like elephant, and she will never ever get healed from it. The only way she will get healed, unless she come across this video and read a comment and say, "I'm sorry. What I did it against you people." Then we will reverse it. But other than that, she will go to every hospital. She will never get healed. The day she try and get on her African continent, she will have a big legs like elephant. So, Corinne Dufka, henceforth, don't go to the African continent again, because it is not a continent that you love. Don't go there. If you go there, you're going to have an elephant legs. And you will never be cured from it. You will live away for the rest of your life, slowly. That is what I can tell you. I have spoken, and it is bounding. If you like, go there. Now, let's get to her article here, what she wrote. You see here? She said, Mali. This is her LinkedIn, right? Her LinkedIn page. She said, Mali, power vacuum and geopolitical implication. Power vacuum and geopolitical implication. Now, folks, She wrote this a month ago, right after the Traore issue happened in Mali. So that's the time she wrote this. She said, Mali, power vacuum. So these people plan these things. So when a jihadi happened, when that thing happened in Mali with the coordination of the JNR and the FLA, when it happened, they were rejoicing. They were happy. Because as you can see, the article that we read, she was advocating for the jihadi, just in case they were going to if they were going to take the Shahid nation to the RCC. She already implicated them. So do you see the reason why Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore said we don't want UN, we don't want Human Rights Watch? Do you see why they took these organizations from there? Some of you now see the reason why they took them out. Some of you now see the reason why they took them out. So when the issue happened in Mali, they were all happy. That's why she said, Mali, power vacuum. So that means the Tiani was gone. That means the Malian government was now broken. So it was power vacuum. Now she said geopolitical implication. Now it was time for them to go in now. It was time for them to go in now. So listen to what she said here. This lady is evil. The day she stepped on the African continent, I repeat, I have spoken spiritually. The day she stepped there, she's going to have an elephantia stage. Her legs going to be swallowed. The moment she get down from that plane and put her legs on her shore or the African continent, she will live in pain for the rest of her life. So people that know her, they should advise her, she should not step on the African continent again. The day she stepped there, she's going to have a big leg like elephant. She will live here for the rest of her life. She will never get healed from it. And she thinks it's fun. I have spoken. Life is spiritual. Let's continue here. Now, what I'm about to read here, right? In fact, let me post the link. Let me post the link because it's actually she's coded. She's speaking in code. Look, people, look, man, look. she spoke in code, right? She spoke in code. Let me post the link here. She spoke in code, so some of you can get time to read it. She spoke in code. That's the link right there. That's the link. She spoke in code. You are not understanding. Yeah, okay, let's read. I'm telling you, she spoke in code. It's deep. Okay, it's deep. She spoke in code. All right, I just posted the link. But anyway, let's read here. Now, according to her, right, she said quietly, dramatic day in Mali. Listen to this. Oh, listen to this. People government have been tackled with. She said quietly, dramatic day in Mali, with many more questions than answer. With many more questions than answer. Keeping in mind, this is not 2012. Now, she said, keeping in mind, this is not 2012. What does that mean? She was speaking in code. What happened in 2012 in Mali? What happened in 2012 in Mali? The government came into power. The government came into being. And it succeeded. So what she's trying to say, yeah, that was 2012. You came to power. You succeeded in coup, right? But this time around, 2026, you are not going to succeed. So you see, and you see this lady, you see these people. She's speaking in code. After they have written a lot of nonsense bunch of articles to use it against the Shahid nation in the RCC, it did not work. Now they put a terrorist group together. So you see here, oh my God, look, folks, I'm going to read these things. Quietly, dramatic day in Mali with many more questions than answer. Keeping in mind, this is not 2012. And see, the NOT, she wrote it in capital letter. That means she was shouting. That means she was rejoicing. That means she was happy. This is not 2012. That's what she was trying to say. Basically, this is not 2012. This is 2026. You succeeded in 2012, but this you will not succeed because we put all the tolerance group together to attack various places. She was speaking cool. Let's continue. She said the rebound. You see, this is now 2012, and then she said, column, the rebound. That means for them, they were able to group together. They came robustically, and they did not just attack one city, but they attacked about 6 different cities. So how was the government going to how to call it, apprehend the terrorists in these 6 key cities? So they came robust. So folks, this thing was planned by the West. This thing was planned. Corinne Dufka know about this. It was planned. I got this from her LinkedIn. We traced it and we found it from her LinkedIn. Let's continue here. She said, issue to watch. Now she's telling you, watch out what is about to play. And this happened when a coup first took place. So probably it could be right after the coup took place. The next day, she came out with this. Because you imagine when a coup took place, the next day, mainstream media, Western media start reporting in favor of the jihadi. So that's the time she came out about this, rejoicing that yes, we won. Yes, our tactic won. Yes, we played the book and it won and it happened. We succeeded. Yes. So now she said, issue to watch. You see, issue to watch. And then she's in parentheses, she said, plus, adding to at Lebowitz. I don't know what she put in there, but again, she's speaking in code here. LEBOVICH is an acronym that she know, and the people that coordinated this thing know, right? She said at LEBOVICH plus other XLT post. She's speaking in code. And the people that are part of the funding of the terrorists from the West in the Sahel region, they know what she's trying to say here. So she's actually speaking in code. Let's continue. She said, who will fill power vacuum? Post Sergio Camara. Now, who is going to be the next leader? Post Sergio Camara. After these men have died, after they kill him, the terrorists kill him, after they themselves, they've come in Dufka here. After they have supported the terrorists to kill an African commander, an African general, they are happy. Who will fill power vacuum? Post Sergio Camara. And then she said, plus if Connie / Koita *4. Now you see *4, or we are falling, or we are filled by one side or other. And what are geopolitical implications? Notably, Russia plus Turkey plus US milk crop. So now you see here, basically what she was trying to say here, because Russia was in, right, from the support of the Malian. So what she's trying to say here now is, after Sergio Camara, they have been killed and is gone. Now she said, plus if. That means, just in case now, right? A semi-Keita 4. That's what she said here, a Keita *4. Just in case Keita 4, his government failed, right? The terrorists succeed, right? How is the geopolitical influence going to play? Will Russia still be there? Because if the Malian government fall, Keita 4, and Sadio Camara is gone, right? And the terrorists come in. So that means, will that be Russia? No. That's what she's trying to say here. Now, will that be Russia? Because plus Turkey there, plus the US. So who will come in? So now she's trying to say the geopolitical influence is about to play. This will happen right after the coup. So you see here, speaking in coup, let's continue here. She went as far as saying, she said, are Malian sourcing on Russian milk crop? Now she's trying to say, are Malians still depending on Russia after key major cities have been taken from y'all? Are you people still depending on Russia? Because she have already made assumption here. How they call it, Sadio Camara is gone. Now, let's just say if assuming Gaeta fall, right? How will the geopolitical influence play? Are they going to reinstall Russia? Okay, so now she's saying here now, where the Malians still believe in Russia to keep Russia. And then she said, folks, because she's asking question. She said, folks reporting growing anti-Russian posts. Now, this was after the coup. This was after, to them, the jihadi have succeeded in key 6 major cities. Now, she came out to say there were anti-Russia protests. Where did that happen in Mali? Where did that happen? So now you see they're coming up with their narrative. They're coming up with their narrative. She said, folks reporting. Who are reporting? She did not say Malian reporting. She just said folks were reporting. So basically, the people that were reporting, they were the terrorists. Because she's in communication with the terrorists. Like she said, the period article we've been reading. She said, folks reporting growing anti-Russia posts, giving their retreat from Kader. Who were in Kader? So far, the terrorists were in Kader. Because when they took the 6 key major cities, who were there? It was the terrorists were in Kader. So the terrorists were the one thinking anti-Russian and stuff. They didn't want that was doing that. Let's continue. It's deeper. Now, she went as far as saying, why FLA/JNAP retake? So now you see it. Why FLA/JNAP retake of Kader? Mistake. Ideal town where JNAP is similarly negotiating. So now you see, look, in their mind, the Malian government have already failed. Because in their mind, the Malian government was never ever going to retake 6 key major cities. Because it took 1 day for the jihadi, the terrorist group to take 6 key major cities. So it was going to be impossible for the Malian army or the Malian authority to regain all those key cities right back in no time. It was going to be impossible. So you see, these people, they are playing. They already planned these things working with the terrorists. And Colonel Dufka is here exposing the West, exposing the enemy of Africa, as she is an enemy. Why FL/JNAP retake of Kidal? Mistake. Ideal town where JNAP is similarly negotiating the retreat of FMA, that is the Malian army, FAMA, the FEMA, which could fulfill goal of pinning JNAP fashion to establish proof of concept. Basically, what she was trying to say here now is the T group were in authority, right? The T group were in authority now, basically. So what she was trying to say here now, the T group have taken 6 key major cities now. Basically, the government has failed. So is the JNAP in communication with the FEMA? Because the FEMA are the army, so the army definitely stay there. So are they in communication with the army to work with the army? Because the army can be an enemy. These people still have military power. They are trained and they still have arms. So now, what she's trying to say here is the JNAP should collaborate with the army because the Malian army have been dissolved, or government have been dissolved. Because Goita was no longer in power, the strongest military men have failed. So Goita, basically, is failed. The Malian government has fallen. It was impossible for them to regain 6 key major cities. So now she was trying to say, she was giving suggestion for the JNAP actually to recruit, to bring along the FEMA, the Malian military. Because if they don't do so, it's going to be, maybe fight. That's what she was saying here. So you see how they brought the FEMA and the JNAP together, the FLA and the JNAP together. She's exposing the West of their plan they did in Mali. Now, she went as far as saying FLA plus JNAP. You see here, FLA plus JNAM is a symbolic. You see this? You see this? It's a symbolic. SMA plus JNAM is it a symbolic mutual tolerance interest. Tolerance. So you see, tolerance. That means respectable, how they call it, group. Respectable, acceptable. So you see, these people are the one working with the terrorists. You see these people working with the terrorists. You see here, Connie is working with the terrorists. You see why Ibrahim Traore said these foreign journalists should go, and she's a journalist, she's a photographer. You see it? Why Ibrahim Traore said these people should vermouth and leave the Shahid? You see that? She said that they tolerate their mutual group, their tolerance group, their respectable group, their accepting groups. Listen to this. FLA plus JNAM, is it symbolic? How they call it symbolistic or symbol, whatsoever she put there, right? And then she said mutual tolerance / interest or a true partnership. You see that? Now, she's asking all these questions. She's asked, you see question mark? Right? She's speaking in code. She's speaking so that, you know, you will not read this and understand it. Especially if you are not a revolutionary, especially if you have not been doing intensive research and studying these people and trying to study their ideology and start trying to study what they stand for and what they believe in. You will read this, you will not understand. I'm telling you. You will read this, you will not understand that these people, they are speaking in code. You will not understand. If you are just a common reader, like you have not been, you know, reading and understanding the tactics of the colonialist, of the imperialist, you will read this and you will not understand it, what she's saying here, because they spoke in code. She's speaking in code here. Now let's continue. She said, Wa Kataba Masina presence in Kida credibly reported plus vice versa FLA elsewhere. So you see SLA elsewhere. That means look, elsewhere in Mali, right? JNAB factor remain suspicious of Tigray. So now you see, right? Even though they put these people together. Now listen, what she's doing here, right? It is a communication between she and another hierarchy of the West, right? Fauna of the terrorists, right? There's a communication between them. So she's communicating that, listen, even though this has succeeded, right? But equally so, we can still trust these people. And you know, we can still trust these people because these people, you know, might also vice versa, you know, work with this. That's what she's trying to say here. So this communication, right, is not between she and the terrorists. Yet they are supporting the terrorists and defending the terrorists, but this is a communication, is a core communication, is coded. Communication written to another people of a hierarchy that they support the terrorists, that they funded the terrorists, that they put these people together to go on this mission. So she's communicating that, listen, we can't trust these people back. The same way, you know, there's a happy thing, right? We can't trust these people. So we have to be in the loop for this. So let me read it again. That's what she's trying to say. But they're speaking core here. She said, why can Timba, Masina, presence in Kida? That is another terrorist group, right? That they trust. Why they are presence in Kida? Because it's a communication like on phone, like, listen, why are we doing this, right? We have to be on our alert. We have to do this. We can't trust this person. That's the communication going on here. All right? So why they have a terrorist in Kida that they trust, that they're in communication with, right? Because as you can see, she said, why can Tiba Masina presence in Kida credibly that they believe in, credibly reported that everything reported from Kida, they believe it from this person is true, that they have overtaken Kida. So you see, and then she said, vice versa. FLA somewhere. JNAB factor remains suspicious. You see, so that means the same way they communicated with Ketiba Messina in Kida, right? Is the same way vice versa plus vice versa. They are in communication with the FLA. Okay? Now she said, but however, the Jaina factors remain suspicious. So you see, folks, these people, the terrorist group, did not just wake up to attack Mali. The terrorist group did not just wake up to attack Mali. It was planned by the West, and Corinne Dufka know about it, and she's communicating here. Just how we believe in Matiba Maseni presence in Kida, credibly reported, right? Plus, vast rest of the FLA reported whatsoever they are that we believe in. However, the Jaina factor remains suspicious. We do not believe in them. Because why? Because remains suspicious of the Tuguri as our agenda. So they are saying the Jaina plus the Tuguri, in parentheses, the Asawa agenda, right? They might have different agenda. So we don't have credible information that these people, will be in collaboration. But now we know the FLA, right? And the people in Kida, the other terrorists go in Kida, we already have them under control. We're in communication with them, right? We get their credibility. But the Jaina and the Asawa, we don't trust them. So she's speaking in code to her partners who supported the plot against Mali on our day. Then listen to this. She said, plus, FLA acceptance of Shahara. Plus FLA acceptance of Shahara is, I am told. You see? Is, I am told, a rare land. So you see here, it's a communication going on here. Between them, between the West, whosoever that they plan this attack. There's a communication going on here. This is on LinkedIn, folks. I posted the link. Take your time and read it. You will see how they speak in core here. Let's continue here. Let's continue. She said, some chatter, you see, some chatter reported. Some chatter, so, oh my God. Look, Africa, we have no friends, especially when you come to the West. Especially when it comes to the people that enslave you, colonize you, and systematically, indirectly, or directly kill your leaders. They are not your friends. If you don't know this today. They are not your friends. Listen to this. He said, some chatter reported today suggest. So you see the chatter? They are very, so the chatter here is right. Let me not be specific. Okay. I will speak in a way you understand. For example, people are in this part, right? That support, okay. People are in part in France. They are chatter there. Okay. They are part in Europe. They are chatter there. All right. That are raising money for the jihadi, for the terrorists. They are chatter. Okay. So now she's saying some of the chatter, maybe somebody from France chatter, from Europe chatter, from America, Okay, all right. Suggested. Let's read. Some chatter supported, or some chatter reported today suggest FLA accepted JNAB. So you see, FLA accepted JNAB demand for Shahara. And then she put in parentheses, light, or how they call it, caution, light, and then caution. So they're speaking in code. They understand what they're saying here. You see it? Some chatter reported today suggests FLA accepted JNAB. So that means they are in communication with the terrorists. And then that particular some chatter in communication with the terrorists in their meeting now, right, where they are counting Dufka is saying that another chapter, reported that, oh yeah, the JNAB accepted, the FLA. They are working together. Okay, demand of what the FLA want or the JNAB want. Because to them, the Malian government was already crushed. So now they're planning. Listen to this. And they said that it will be managed by JNAB. So now they're speaking places that will be managed by JNAB, places that will be managed by the FLA. You see here? that it will be managed by the JNA, but administered by the FLA. So today the Malian government was all for this their communication was done right after the incident happened in Mali. You see that? So the jihadi, they were in communication with them because they brought a group together. Okay? So that it will be managed by the JNA but administered by the FLA. But, she said, but if FLA reinforced by the Traore defecting from the jointer, will that change? You see, so she's asking a question. Will that change the balance of power between the FLA and JNA? You see that? And then from there she said, re-offenses. Again, they're speaking in code because they are asking this, the question they ask here, right? It is a question they are about to answer, but they're speaking in code. They are speaking in code. So she said, let me read this. But if the FLA reinforced by the Traore defecting from jointer, will that change the balance of power between the FLA and the JNA? And then in answering the question, they spoke in code. They said re-offense. Re-offensive. You see, re-offensive. That means what next should come. Re-offensive. They are trying to answer that question now. Re-offensive. Then she said, what was the toll? And then that was question mark. Then she said, folks in Sarah describe seeing many bodies coming into local hubs after JNAB surrounded /Shy FN/FEMA babies in severe plus. Sadly, there were many civilians killed when mosques hit in KT, right? Now, so in answering the question, right, she answered the question right here. So she's trying to say, right, actually, the terrorists succeeded because there are many bodies of the FEMA, of the Malian military. And then the bases have been destroyed. Bases in severe. Plus, sadly, there were many civilians killed by the terrorist group. And then mosques in the area. So you see. So they were giving reassurance that these things we succeeded. Because according to the terrorist group, many Malian bases have been seized on a siege. And then many Malian army have been dead. So they can't come back. This is Corinne Dufka. I'm saying it again. The day she stepped on the Africa, she shouldn't go there. People that love her, they should tell her. If she dare try and dear God, if she dare try get on the African continent, she's gonna get a big leg, elephantiasis. Her two legs will grow fat, and she will never ever recover from it. Never. She will go to all the renowned doctors in the world. She will never be safe. They will continue to tear her legs, and will continue to grow back. So she can sit down in her Western wall and eat her burger and eat her Wendy's and eat her McDonald's, everything, and have fun. She's not going to get an elephantiasis. But the day she dare try it, get on the African continent, no. Let's continue. And then she went as far as saying, how will JNAM/FLA keep up the male pressure? You see? So now she's saying, okay, the Sexton have been on a siege, right? We got to keep the pressure. So now she's communicating with her partners, her Western partners that are funding the jihadi. What can we do for the JNAM to keep the pressure so that the army can regroup? Because even though all what we are saying, we are not yet sure. Because the truth is, Russia, at the end of the day, stayed there and Russia got influence. So they might regroup. So now that we got a keys town, what can we do for the terrorists to keep the pressure? So you see, these are people that are supporting the terrorists. And then Nigeria, you sit down there and you allow the US come and say, we're coming to fight for Christians, we're coming to do this, we're coming to do this. And then you allow these people come there and sit down there. No one of Nigeria can fight Boko Haram. Boko Haram keep kidnapping, killing, looting, raping. Nigeria army can't do nothing. Nigeria government can't do nothing. Because Buhari have been alleged, Buhari sold the defense minister, the defense of Nigeria to foreigners. Go do your research. Buhari sold the defense. Oh God. Sir. So she's asking, how will the JNAP or the FLA keep up the male pressure? I mean, who in their right mind will even say this? So you see how they support the jihadi, they support the terrorists? Keep pressure for the Malian government to be dissolved, for the Burkinabe government to be dissolved, for the Saharian nation to be dissolved. So, folks, these people know that the freedom of Africa, the liberation of Africa lies in the Saharian region. Because if these people succeed, and Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso build by fire, by force, the rest of the other nation will follow the same doctrine. And that will be the end of the West. Because everything we're doing here, we're talking here is the resources. These people don't care about African life. Do you see the number of people, according to her, 5 million people killed by jihadi? And she justified that and say it is right because of what the government are doing against the jihadi. Government don't want to support jihadi. Did you see that? How will JNAP or FLA keep up the pressure? And then she said, read. Now you see, this is what she put here, read. They're speaking in code. And then she said, what will FLA/JNAP's next target be? So you see here. So now, in their mind, Mali has fallen. So the next target could be Burkina Faso or the next target could be Niger. Folks, we are not making our story. We are not making our story here. This is our link page. I just posted a link. And there's a communication between they and the people that support the terrorists. There's a communication between them. These people are enemies to the African continent. They are the devil the Bible speak of. They are Satan, they are synagogues of Satan the Bible speak of. The Bible warned us in Isaiah, be careful with these people. Just because they come to speak to you softly, just because they come to speak and their voice are so thin like oil and butter, they are not coming for peace. They are not coming for collaboration. They are not coming for humanitarian purposes. They are not coming for diplomatic purposes. What they are coming for is war. What is in their hand is sword. What is on their mind is death. What is on their mind is blood. What is on their mind is looting the African resources. That is all on their mind. So you see what she said here in their communication. How will JNAP or FLA keep the pressure? And then she said, read. What will FLA/JNAP next target be? And then she said, GOA, GAO, she put question mark. And then she said, TB2, she put question mark. You see it? So they know what they are saying here. They know what GOA means, question mark. They know what TB2 means, question mark. Because she said, what will FLA/JNAP next target be? GAO, question mark. TB2, question mark. Maybe TB2 could be Ibrahim Traore. Who knows? because they are speaking in code for people to not understand. So TBT could be, Burkina Faso next. Ibrahim Traore could be next. Who knows? TBT, TB2. It could be Ibrahim Traore next. Who knows? And then she said, Konna, C-O-N-N-A, Konna, question mark. So she's asking, could these places be the next target? She's asking, these places could be the next target to hit because we have get 6 key cities. So these places could be the next target to hit, to get. You see? And then she said, now that key annex blocked by GNEP plus plus FEMA paralyzed, you see, plus FEMA paralyzed by succession drama. You see that? So in their mind, this was right after the coup. In their mind, Mali was gone. So you see, the team group did not just wake up and went and did that. They sponsored this. The West sponsored this. And that is why France 24, the France media were all around the place. And France reporter, some of them had even said it. It was sponsored by the West. So now you see, how did they know that Mali was already paralyzed? Because this was right after the coup, they killed the general. And then in their mind, the general is dead. And 6 key cities have been taken. Oh, Mali is gone. Mali is paralyzed. So now they said, where next to go? Because the truth here is the FEMA is paralyzed. The Malian army is paralyzed. So now we have to run over all our cities and get them quick. Did you see here? And this is coming from a Human Rights Watch rector, a Human Rights Watch advocate, a journalist who on the African continent also speak, taking pictures and things, reporting, giving good report, giving neutral report or non-biased report. You see here? Let's continue here. And then she said, how will the famous, you see, she even mocking now, they are mocking the AES. How will the famous AES collaboration play out? You see? Because she saw that, in fact, she's mocking Africans, both home and abroad. Because it came a time when Michael Leslie said, went to Congress and said they should wage war on Burkina Faso, Niger and things. And the entire globe of black people rose up and said, don't try it. If you try it, you will see what will happen. That's the time they saw unification of African people, of black people all around the world. Now she's saying, what will that famous collaboration be? You see? How will the famous AES collaboration play out? Now she's playing phone, she's mocking Africans. You see the devil? You see the devil? How will the famous AES collaboration play out? You see that? So what they don't like is African people coming together. What they don't like is African people unifying. What they don't want to see is African people collaborating. What they don't want to see is African people becoming strong. What they don't want to see is African people telling the West, we don't want to be dependent again. We want to be independent. We don't want to depend on you. That's what they don't like. You see it? How will the famous AES collaboration play out? And then when she said, central to it all, she's speaking in code. Central to it all, plus different from 2012. You see? She's trying to say this is different from 2012. This is different from 2012 because the truth here is we have succeeded. Because the question here, she asked a question, right? She said, how will the famous AES collaboration play out? And then she said, central to it all, plus different from the 2012. So that means it's different from 2012 because the collaboration of the AES has failed. Because you saw right here, first of all, they said the FEMA is already paralyzed. Right here, FEMA is already paralyzed. Now you see, how will the FEMA AES collaboration play out? Central to it all, plus different from the 2012 with AQUAM. AQRM is acronym again. They know what it means. And then she said, has Jenna's relationship to AQ? This could be Al Qaeda because they're speaking in code. Okay, has Jenna's relationship to Al Qaeda changed? And then she said, folks talk of a strategic decoupling. Folks talk of a strategic decoupling. Plus, Jenna discourse more about community. So you see, Jenna discourse more about community protection / priority, which vision to involve politically. So you see right here, yeah, she is justifying Jenna that Jenna is about community integration. Jenna is about community partnership. Jenna is about community priority. Jenna vision involve politically tied to local agenda. Jenna, political agenda is tied to how they call it, vision is tied to political agenda. I mean, or local agenda. You see it? Justifying. So you see, these are the people that put the T groups together. Folks, these are the people that put the T group together. And then look at some of the comment here. Look at this. You see right here, there's a Cynthia Petrie. I mean, that's a white person here. She said, thank Connie Dufka. Maybe she could be working with Connie Dufka for human rights. She said, thank Connie Dufka for sharing your analysis. And these are the people that she's communicating with. These are the people that are funding the T group, that supporting the T group. In fact, you see right here where she said a chapter. Let's see right here. Maybe there could be one of the members right here, right? She said, look right here. She said, some chapter reported today suggests FLA accepted Jenna, right? So maybe that chapter, right? That chapter could be one of these members. You see right here, that chapter could be one of these members here. It could be that chapter could be one of these members. She said, thank Connie Dufka for sharing your analysis. HR, how will this affect Burkina? Are they next? You see, will AES become? Oh my God! You see these people? You see here? Oh my God! So these people thought they have succeeded, though. Right after that coup, they thought they have succeeded. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. You see that? So that's it. So they have been exposed. What happened in Mali? It was plain. Anyway, let's watch this video from my brother. All right, he tried to elaborate on it. So that's what I have to give today, but let's just watch this. We may not play all, but let's.
Yeah, we back. Now, in today's video, I want to react to an American journalist by the name of Corinne Dufka. This lady right here, as you can see, and she dropped an article in the World Politics Review. And the article is entitled, Mali's Jihadists, Mali's Terrorists Look to Syria as a Template for Taking Power. And in that article, she was echoing similar sentiments as the French politician that we dropped a video on the other day, who talked about integrating the terrorist groups into the government. She was also making the same case as well, right? She was saying that Al-Qaeda should be integrated into the government. We should sit at the table and negotiate with Al-Qaeda. And the example she gave in the article was the current leader in Syria, Ahmad al-Sharaa, formerly known as Mohammed al-Jolani. Take a look up on the screen, as you can see, who had a $10 million bounty on his head from the United States government as an international terrorist, but today is now recognized as the leader of Syria. the recognized authority in Syria. And in the article, she was basically making the case that a similar model can be applied in this case as well, where we can take the leaders of the terrorist groups, integrate them into the government, negotiate with them, come to an agreement with them, similar to what happened with the leader in Syria, who was able to rebrand himself from an international terrorist, an international criminal, to now being seen as the recognized leader at the head of a country. And of course, this is not groundbreaking news for us because we already had this conversation on the channel like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Take a look up on the screen. We dropped this video. The Western-backed rebels, the Western-backed terrorists in Mali admit that they are inspired by Syria. So we already did a video reacting to the spokesperson for the terrorist groups who went over to France on the French media, and he was saying how he was inspired by the leader in Syria, right? He said, my brother in Syria. He said he has immense amount of respect for the leader in Syria. So we already had this conversation, but now this lady, Corinne Dufka, she is now making the case, and we're going to react to this article as well. Now, for those of y'all who have not watched the previous videos that we have dropped on this subject, go to the playlist. We have a playlist entitled The April 25th Terrorist Attacks. I think it's about 19 videos, 20 videos. So go check that out if you haven't. But anyway, before we jump into the article, let's talk about the author of the article. Who is she? Who is this lady, Corinne Dufka? And why is she advocating for the terrorist groups? Why is she defending the terrorist groups? Why is she suggesting that the terrorist groups be integrated into the government? Let's see who this lady is. Take a look up on the screen. Corinne Dufka is an American photojournalist, a human rights researcher, a criminal investigator, and a social worker. She is also the recipient of the MacArthur Genius Grant Fellowship. The MacArthur Fellowship, known as the Genius Grant, is a prestigious, no-strings-attached prize of $800,000 awarded to extraordinarily creative and dedicated individuals, administered by the John D. and Catherine MacArthur Foundation. The grant is distributed over 5 years to support the recipients in pursuing their original work. So, okay, so she's a recipient of this $800,000 grant from this foundation, the MacArthur Foundation or the MacArthur Fellowship. Let's see what they're about, right? Take a look up on the screen. The John D. and Catherine MacArthur Foundation is a major American private foundation that funds influential voices in journalism, academia, public policy, human rights, and international affairs through grants and fellowships like the MacArthur Fellowship, commonly known as the Genius Grant. The foundation operates within the broader ecosystem of Western policy, NGO, academic, and media institutions that influence global discussions surrounding governance, conflict, democracy, development, and human rights. In international affairs, its work generally reflects the perspectives and priorities associated with the Western-led global order, particularly through the support of analysts, researchers, activists, and institutions involved in policy and conflict-related work. Now, let's jump straight into the article, right? As you can see by the headline, the terrorists in Mali are looking to Syria as a template for taking power. Let's see what she had to say. And of course, I'm going to come in and out my commentary as we read along. Let's jump into it. Not wasting no time. The article starts out by saying, last month, Islamist insurgents in Mali nearly toppled the military government running the landlocked West African nation, and they still might, right? So off the top, we bigging up the terrorist groups. The terrorist groups almost toppled the government, and they still might topple the government, right? So off the rip, we bigging up the terrorist groups from the gate. Let's continue. In a stunning offensive that was coordinated with the Tuareg separatist fighters. Okay, so off the rip, we're not calling them terrorists. We calling them the fighters, the separatist fighters, the stunning offensive. They almost toppled the government, and they still might, right? So off the rip, we bigging up the terrorist groups. Let's continue. In a stunning offensive that was coordinated with the Tuareg separatist fighters, thousands of jihadists from JNIM attacked army bases hundreds of miles apart, killed the defense minister in a daring attack near the capital, and captured several strategic towns in the north. The military government is now on the back foot as the terrorist group known as JNIM. Now, keep in mind, I'm the one referring to them as the terrorist groups, right? They're not referring to them as terrorist groups. They're referring to them as stunning fighters, right? So I'm the one putting that label on them to, put it into perspective and give the correct narrative. They're the one calling them, stunning fighters, the amazing offensive, kissing their boots, right? Bigging up the terrorist groups. Let's continue. The military government is now on the back foot as the terrorist group known as JNIM maintains the months-long blockade of food and fuel to the capital and continues its offensive operations in Mali. Now, time out. Now, obviously, this lady on the sidelines cheerleading for the terrorist groups. But once again, I have to ask the question, if the offensive was so stunning and these are such amazing fighters as you claim, right? How come they couldn't achieve a single objective that they set out to achieve, right? You couldn't hold any of the cities you claim they attacked, right? Oh, they attacked all these cities. How many did they hold on to? That is the question we have to ask, right? You attacked the city, but you were driven out in like 36 hours. So what does it really matter? Is that really a stunning offensive if you couldn't even hold on to your position, right? You failed to overthrow the government. You failed to collapse the state. You were pushed out of damn near every city you attacked. So what is this stunning offensive of which you speak? I would love to sit down with this lady and really ask her, what is so stunning about getting pushed out of damn near every position and not being able to achieve the objective, which was take over the government and collapse the government, overthrow the government? Last time I checked, the commander-in-chief, Assimi Goïta, he's still in power. He's still at the head of the country. So what did you achieve? I don't see the stunning offensive of which you speak. You couldn't even achieve a single objective. And just a few days ago, I believe back on May 19th, the terrorist groups put out a message calling for international assistance from the international community. Take a look up on the screen. Communique number 14, condemning the repeated use of cluster munitions by the government in Mali and its Russian allies, right? So the terrorist groups coming out calling for humanitarian assistance, right? Because they're getting bombs dropped on top of their head. But you talking about the stunning offensive, right? If it was the stunning offensive, why they begging for help? Why they begging for mercy, right? How come they trying to call for international assistance if it was a stunning offensive, right? I don't see what you're talking about, lady. Anyway, let's continue. But I know, listen, they gave you the $800,000, so you got to, you know what I mean, push the company lines. Let's continue. She went on to say, since 2012, when terrorists took advantage of a Traore rebellion to ramp up their attacks in Mali, I have spoken with hundreds of villagers, imams, politicians, and soldiers. And wait, time out. So she starts her timeline in 2012. So she didn't even mention what happened in Libya. That's how you know you're not being honest. You're not operating in good faith. You didn't even mention what happened in Libya back in 2010, 2011. You started the timeline at 2012. So we don't even talk about which governments came in and destabilized the region when they intervened in Libya back in 2010, 2011. You started the timeline at 2012, right? So I see what you're doing. Listen, I get it. Listen, we're not going to talk about who destabilized the region. I get it. Anyway, let's continue. Since 2012, when terrorists took advantage of a Tuareg rebellion to ramp up their attacks in Mali, I have spoken with hundreds of villagers, imams, politicians, and soldiers, and people who are aligned with the terrorist groups, and those who are living in the areas controlled by the terrorist groups. So she said that her source of information are the people who are allied with the terrorist group. She said, I've been speaking with the allies of the terrorist groups and those who are living amongst the terrorist groups. And then she said this, and what I increasingly hear from them is that there is no military solution to the conflict. It is time for the government and the terrorist groups to talk. Now, time out. Now, of course, like I said, I'm the one calling them the terrorist groups. I'm the one referring to them as the terrorist groups because for whatever reason, the international media refuses to refer to them as the terrorist groups. I don't know why. They're affiliated with Al-Qaeda. It's pretty obvious. But for whatever reason, they don't want to call them the terrorist groups. They want to call them the fighters, the rebels, the separatists, the jihadists, whatever they want to call it. But they don't want to call them the terrorist groups. I don't understand why. I mean, I understand why, because that means that you're also going to be classified as a state sponsor of terrorism if everybody views them as terrorist groups. So you don't want that accountability to fall on your back. I get it. I understand. Now, it's so many things wrong with that first paragraph in her article, besides the point that she started out by bigging up the terrorist groups or the stunning fighters of the terrorist groups, right? Besides that fact, that's not even the worst part. She says her source for the information that she's coming with is those who are allied with the terrorist groups, right? You can see it from the first paragraph. She literally said, I have been talking to villagers and politicians and imams and people who are aligned with the terrorist groups, people who are aligned with JNIM. She said that, right? I've been talking to those who are allied with JNIM. So how come she doesn't talk to those who are allied with the government? How come she's not interested in getting the government's perspective of the situation? Instead, she's getting her information from the terrorist groups. That's the first red flag to me. The second red flag, of course, is her saying that the government needs to sit down and negotiate, have a conversation with the terrorist groups. Now, there's a major contradiction there. She starts out the article saying that the terrorist groups are stunning fighters. They put on an amazing offensive. They captured all these cities and towns. They're just, wreaking havoc on everybody. The terrorist groups are controlling and dominating the field. So if that was the case, why are they trying to negotiate? If you are winning, right? If you are on the offensive, if you are the one reigning victorious, why would you negotiate? You would go for all-out victory because according to you, the terrorist groups are reigning supreme. They doing their thing. So why would they need to negotiate? When you're winning, you don't negotiate. When you're winning, you go for all-out victory. The only people who negotiate are those who are losing, who are bleeding, who are dying out, who are on the back foot and are begging for mercy and want to come to a compromise. It's usually those who are getting beat. not the ones who are reigning victorious and just going on the offensive. So you claim the terrorists are stunning fighters, but they want to negotiate. They want to sit down and talk. Why don't they go for all-out victory? If that was the case, if they're so amazing like you claim they are, how come they don't go for all-out victory? Why would they need to negotiate if they're winning, according to you? Since when have you ever heard somebody winning, especially in war, and then say, you know what, let's stop winning and let's sit down and negotiate with the people that we beaten up, right? We beaten up on the adversary. We beaten up on the enemy. Let's stop fighting and let's sit down and negotiate. No, the only people who want to negotiate and come to the table are those who are losing, right? Listen, let's come to a compromise. Please don't annihilate me, right? Those are the individuals who typically negotiate in a war setting, right? The ones who don't want to get annihilated, the ones who want to come to a compromise. So you claim they're so amazing, they're so dominant, they captured all these cities, which they couldn't even hold on to. And at the same time, you claim they want to negotiate, right? So that's a major contradiction. How do you make sense of that? They're winning so much, but they want to negotiate. They don't want to go for all-out victory. Okay, yeah, it don't make sense. Let's continue. She went on to say, talking to terrorists to settle a civil war might seem unfathomable, but there is a template for bringing a terrorist insurgency from the code. Look at Syria. There, the Al-Qaeda terrorists from the HTS made the transition from being a United States designated terrorist group to becoming the pragmatic caretakers of the country's government. The leader, Ahmad al-Sharaa, went from having a $2 million bounty on his head to being the country's president and celebrated at the White House. Now, time out. Now, in that article, once again, she's making the case as to why we should sit at the table and integrate the terrorist groups. Let's sit down and have a conversation with the terrorist groups, right? And then she pointed to Syria as an example where that actually happened, where you had somebody who was an international terrorist committing crimes against humanity for the world to see. The United States government was chasing him, looking for him all over the world. And now he is recognized as the leader of a country, right? He is integrated into the international community. And he said, and she's basically saying that the lady who wrote this article is saying that we can do the same thing with the terrorist groups in Mali. We can take the leaders of the terrorist groups and we can throw a suit on them. You know what I mean? We can bring them down to Washington, bring them down to Paris and London, like we did the leader in Syria, right? And we could do the same thing in Mali. We could talk to the terrorist groups, integrate the terrorist groups. Let's do business with the terrorist groups, right? So, that's what it is, right? That is the recommendation that she is making, right? And just like the French politician who said the same thing the other day, she would never advocate that for her own country. She would never advocate for the United States to integrate, the men from Osama bin Laden's entourage into the government of the United States, right? Or give them the Secretary of Defense, right? Osama bin Laden's general or his lieutenants, let's make them the Secretary of Defense. Let's give them jobs in the Department of Defense, right? Let's integrate Al-Qaeda into the United States government. They would never advocate for those things for their own country, especially if it was their friends and family getting killed by the terrorist groups. They would never go to Washington. They would never advocate for that for their own government. They would never advocate to be ruled over by Al-Qaeda, but they'll advocate this nonsense for us. Right. So this one doesn't make sense to me. Just like the French politician, he would never go to the National Assembly and recommend that for his own country, but he believes that to be fit for us in our countries. And if you ask him to explain why, he couldn't even explain why, because they're selfish and it serves their political agenda. That's all it is, because the terrorist groups are willing to sell out the country. The terrorist groups are willing to make deals that Generalissimo Goite refuses to make. Generalissimo Goite refuses to make certain concessions that we demand. But if we get the terrorist groups into power, they are willing to negotiate. They are willing to sign deals, just like the leader in Syria, Ahmad al-Sharaa. That's why they love him. That's why they invite him down to the different European capitals, the Western capitals down in Washington, because he's willing to negotiate. He's willing to sign deals. And now they're trying to replicate that same model that they established in Syria, right? And really, back on April 25th, 2026, during those terrorist attacks, that was the political objective, but they failed. They failed to carry it out. So now they have to regroup. They have to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. So now they're trying to normalize this in the minds of the people, right? They're bringing the terrorist groups onto the media to do interviews, to normalize this in front of the eyes of the world, that these are not criminals. These are not bandits. These are not terrorist leaders. These are diplomats, right? These are statesmen, right? These are men who could be leaders of a country. As you can see, they're trying to legitimize them. And that is why you see this media campaign, 100 miles per hour going against Mali, because that is the agenda. The agenda is to install the leaders of the terrorist groups into power and regain influence in the region, right? Just like they did in Syria when they drove out that government and installed a terrorist Al-Qaeda commander at the head of the government. Now, let's continue. She went on to say, Could the same thing happen in Mali and President Trump's administration play a part in bringing Mali's government and the terrorist groups to the table? So now she's suggesting that the American government, Donald Trump, should be the mediator between General Assimi Goïta and the terrorist bandits, right? The American government could facilitate the conversations between the government and the terrorist groups. Unbelievable. Let's continue. She went on to say, as officials and analysts in the United States reflect on these questions, they should listen to the growing number of Malian religious, community, and political leaders who see dialogue as the only way to end the country's conflict. Now, time out. Once again, advocating for something that she herself would never advocate for her own country. When the terrorists hit the Twin Towers on 9/11, when they hit the towers on 9/11, it was mobilized for war. We going on the offensive against the enemy. We eliminating the enemy, right? It wasn't negotiate with the terrorists. It wasn't let's sit down at the table, let's have a drink, and let's have a conversation with the terrorists, right? When it comes to them, it's military power, it's law and order. Let's put down the enemy, let's crush the adversary. But when it comes to us, let's sit down at the table and let's talk to the terrorist groups. Let's integrate the terrorist groups into the government, right? See, just nonsense that they would never advocate for themselves, right? How come you would never advocate the same thing for yourself? I would love to sit down and ask her, right? How come these same recommendations that you make, would you also make those same recommendations for yourself in a similar situation? And if not, what are the reasons why not? I would love to know. What are the reasons why you would not personally want to be ruled over by terrorist bandits from Al Qaeda, right? How come you don't want to integrate terrorist affiliated criminals from Al Qaeda in the United States government? Give me the reasons why you feel that's not a good idea for you, but you feel that's a great idea for me. I would love to sit down and ask her these questions. If she could sit down, she seems to be a good communicator, a writer, right? So I would love for her to express herself and explain to me the reasons why she would love this for us, but she would not want the same thing for herself. Anyway, she went on to say, since 2012, the conflict in Mali has become the epicenter of jihadist insurgency in West Africa's semi-arid Sahel region, claiming thousands of lives, displacing millions, and generating immeasurable suffering. Today, insurgencies across the Sahel account for more than half of all terrorism-related deaths around the world. The terrorist attacks last month laid bare the weakness of Mali's security forces. So once again, the terrorist groups are stunning fighters and the government's military just weak, right? The government weak, but the terrorists are stunning. Now, keep in mind, if that was the case, then why do you need to negotiate? If the government is weak, like you said, the government is weak, then and the terrorists are just victorious and they're stunning fighters, then how come they don't go for all-out victory? How come they don't go for glory? Why do they want to negotiate with the weak opponent, right? If the opponent is weak, if the enemy is weak, you don't need to negotiate. You could kill the enemy. You could eliminate the enemy because according to you, the enemy is weak. So why would they want to negotiate with somebody who, according to you, is weak? Since when do you negotiate with somebody who's weak? Because that don't make no sense. If somebody's weak, we eliminate them. We vanquish them. We march on them. But if that's the case, you don't need to negotiate. But you're saying two different things. The fighters, they captured all these cities and towns. They're stunning. They're amazing. But they want to negotiate with the weak government. And then, of course, you go on to say all this instability, all this terrorism taking place. But you didn't even address the origins of the instability, the origins of the terrorist activity was the intervention in Libya, which was led by your government, the American government, working in concert with the French government. But you did not mention that, right? You mentioned all the chaos and instability. You start the timeline in 2012. You didn't even mention Libya. And it's funny because you're talking about everybody dying. Oh, man, thousands of people are dying. Millions of people are displaced. But who's displacing them? Who's killing them? Who's driving them out of their homes? It was the same terrorist groups that you were supporting, the same terrorist groups that you called stunning fighters. Oh, they're so stunning, the stunning fighters, right? So the stunning fighters are the ones who are displacing all these innocent civilians from their homes. And those are the stunning fighters that you want the government to negotiate and integrate into the government, even though you would never recommend the same for yourself. So I don't understand what direction you're trying to take me in. But anyway, let's continue. I'm here for the ride. She went on to say, the terrorist attacks by JNIM last month laid bare the weakness of Mali's security forces and also those of their Russian partners, who now risk repeating the failures of the West. France and the European Union and the United States collectively spent billions of dollars over the last 20 years training, supplying, and sharing intelligence with Mali and other regional governments in an unsuccessful bid to clean the region of the jihadists. Despite these efforts, the groups linked to Al Qaeda and the even more brutal Islamic State have expanded exponentially and now threaten neighboring countries with which Washington enjoys close partnerships. Now, time out. Now, we're just going through the article, just exposing the contradictions. You know, obviously the first contradiction is the government is so weak, but somehow the government was not able to be overthrown, right? The offensive was so stunning and the government is on the back foot, but somehow we need to negotiate with the victorious rebels, right? So that's the first thing, right? But in my opinion, the most flagrant thing that she failed to mention, besides not mentioning Libya, right? Besides not mentioning the origin of the instability, she didn't even touch on the fact that who is supporting these terrorist groups, who is arming them, who is equipping them, who is training them, who is providing them with intelligence and logistics, right? She's talking about all these people dying. She's talking about all these families displaced. And she's talking about integrating the terrorists into the government, but she's not talking about what event triggered the instability across the region. Of course, the intervention in Libya, which was led by your government and the French government, right? And she fails to mention who is supporting the terrorist groups. You're talking about all this chaos they're creating, but you fail to even ask the question, who is actually supporting the terrorist groups in the first place, right? I thought you were a journalist, but you won't even ask the most basic question that even a dummy could ask, right? Y'all claim to be all these magnificent journalists, but y'all too stupid to even ask a basic question that even a child would be able to ask. Even a child could understand, okay, in order to fix the problem, who is supporting the terrorist groups? Even a second grader would ask that question, but we got all these seasoned journalists who refuse to touch that question, right? A bunch of dummies acting like they got some intelligent thing to say. Now, the governments of the AES, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, they've already submitted a formal complaint to the United Nations Security Council accusing Ukraine and the French government directly for supporting the terrorist groups in the country and in the region. Take a look up on the screen. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger accuse Ukraine of supporting terrorism in the region. The three West African countries want the UN Security Council to take appropriate measures against Ukraine. The Alliance of Sahel States, the AES, compromising Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, have formally accused France and Ukraine of sponsoring terrorism and destabilizing the region. The military-led nations allege that both countries are actively aiding and equipping terrorist groups to overthrow their governments and reinstall pro-Western leadership. Now, of course, this scandal took place because back in August 2024, a major terrorist attack in northern Mali that led to the deaths of dozens of Malian soldiers, as well as dozens of Russian soldiers as well. It was a big scandal because you had a gentleman by the name of Andrei Yusov, take a look up on the screen, who did an interview and actually, was beating on his chest, talking about, oh man, we just smoked the Russians in Mali. We provided assistance to the terrorist groups, to the so-called the rebel groups, to carry out the mission, to carry out the operation. And of course, that was a major scandal. And the AES went straight to the Security Council, and the Security Council didn't even acknowledge the complaint. They didn't even respond to the complaint. They act like they didn't even see it because, of course, Ukraine has a lot of diplomatic backing, a lot of powerful people supporting Ukraine. So they didn't even acknowledge it at the UN Security Council. So take a look up on the screen. Andrei Yusov, a spokesperson for Ukraine's military intelligence, stated that the Traore separatist rebels received all the necessary information to successfully ambush the Russian mercenaries and Mali's government troops. Right. So this guy openly, went on a broadcast, did an interview, beating on his chest, talking about how he supported the terrorist groups to go kill the soldiers in Mali, as well as the Russian mercenaries. And that was a big major scandal. So while this lady is on the article talking about all these people dying and all these people getting, displaced, but she will not even ask the question about which, external actors are involved in supporting the terrorist groups, that you're not a serious journalist. You're not serious about the conversation if you're not even curious about that most basic question. Right. If you don't want to know the source of the instability, the source of the funding and support and the training, then you don't care about the situation. Right. You're a puppet. You're coming to push a narrative. You're not coming to have real serious discussion. And of course, we know a few months before that terrorist attack, take a look up on the screen. Right. This is coming directly from the French Foreign Ministry, directly from the government website. French military equipment has been delivered to Ukraine. And we know in the past couple of years, the French government has supplied Ukraine with billions of dollars in military equipment. And in fact, just a couple weeks ago, we did a video reacting to a prominent French journalist who goes by the name of Georges Malbruno, who is actually, talking about this same exact scenario, right? The assistance provided to the terrorist groups by the Ukrainian government working in concert with the French government, right? Of course, on this channel, we've been talking about that for years, but Now they just coming out revealing this information as if it's groundbreaking revelations, right? Let's play that clip one more time. George Malbruno revealing what we already know.
According to a French security source, these are units of Ukrainian military intelligence, the GUR, operating in coordination with Tuareg rebels. Among these units are a few dozen former Ukrainian legionnaires who are French-speaking. France is leveraging the pool of numerous Ukrainian soldiers who have served in our foreign legion. The Tuareg separatist rebels want to weaken the junta in power in Bamako. As for the Ukrainians and US French, we want to make the junta's Russian auxiliaries bite the dust. The former Wagner militia, renamed the Africa Corps, who did everything they could to drive us out of Africa. It's a convergence of interests, given that the Tuareg rebels have a long-standing relationship with French intelligence services in the Sahel. France did not want to appear, even covertly. This time, the barrier seems to have been lifted. The Ukrainian smokescreen has the advantage of allowing us to avoid cooperating with al-Qaeda-linked jihadists, whereas by contrast, our ties to the Tuaregs, who are seeking independence for their region, are well known.
Yes, but still the most surprising thing about everything you're saying is that this game of alliances ultimately works to the benefit of the jihadists. You began by saying the rebels and the jihadists are currently allied.
It's a surprising game of alliances, that's true, relying on Ukrainians who are helping Tuareg rebels linked to jihadists who are our enemies. We're dealing with the cold reality on the ground. This is called prioritizing your enemies to achieve a common goal. Once again, weakening the Russians and their allies in the Sahel. Sorry.
All right, we back. Now we know a couple years ago as well, back in 2024, take a look up on the screen. Mali breaks diplomatic ties with Ukraine. So currently right now, Mali has no diplomatic relations with Ukraine because they're recognized as a state sponsor of terrorism, not only as a state sponsor of terrorism, but a state sponsor of terrorism directly against the AES government. So that's already been something that's happened. The complaint at the Security Council has already been submitted, even though it's been ignored. But, you know, that's the truth, man. That is the truth. And in fact, a couple of days ago, I seen an article coming from the Kiev Post. You know, Kiev, that's the capital of Ukraine. And this is a prominent media publication in Ukraine called the Kiev Post. And look at this headline. A Russian drone has been shot down in Mali, marking the first potential use in Africa. So they revealed that the Russian drones are very similar to the Iranian drones, are currently being deployed by the Malian government against the terrorist groups. And somehow the terrorist groups have obtained the technology to shoot down Russian Iranian drones, right? They somehow, I think the Shahed drones, I think that's what they called. Somehow the terrorist groups have the necessary equipment, have the military equipment that is capable of shooting down Iranian drones, Russian drones, right? Somehow they've, you know, somehow we're able to get that in their possession, right? So that's very interesting to me. And if you remember, I think it was about maybe like a year ago or something like that, the foreign minister in Mali himself actually, you know, called out Ukraine as well. And he even asked the question, does the international community exist, right? They always talking about the international community. He was asking, does this so-called international community exist? Because when we sent the complaint down to the UN Security Council, they didn't even acknowledge the complaint, right? So is it really about, you know, international peace and stability? Do these nations who claim to defend democracy and peace and stability, is that really what they're about? I don't think so. Play that clip. I'll be right back.
Does an international community exist? Is this actually a community? Is it truly international? Because Mali, Burkina, and Niger presented a very, very clear and simple position before the Security Council that Ukraine, a member of the United Nations which has obligations, openly declared through its officials, intelligence services, but also diplomats, that it actively provides intelligence and logistical support to terrorist groups in northern Mali, which is completely unacceptable. To this very day, the Security Council has not even acknowledged receipt of what we submitted. We know that Russia supports our initiative, but we haven't heard a single word from anyone. So what exactly does that mean? I think I'll throw the question back to you. Is the so-called international community truly working for peace and stability, or is it simply a policy of double standards? When an ally and a friend is called into question, I think we prefer to look the other way. Our people are deeply disappointed, and we believe that now more than ever, our nations must take charge of their own destiny and do what is needed to guarantee our security, because we are convinced that the methods employed by terrorist groups or others are aimed at political objectives. That is absolutely clear. However, it's not my responsibility to answer for the international community you just mentioned.
All right, so we back. So once again, if she's not going to ask the most basic question and investigate where these so-called these terrorist groups or these stunning fighters, as she calls them, where they get their support, their logistical support, their material support, their military support, their diplomatic support, their media support, if we don't examine these international networks, then you're not really serious about getting to the bottom of the situation, right? You're here for something else, right? You know, we have to be honest about that. So anyway, let's continue. She went on to say, United States supported democracy strengthening efforts have fared no better in stabilizing the region, as evidenced by the cascade of military coups that since 2020 have toppled elected leaders in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The same is true of United States and European humanitarian aid aimed at improving the Sahel's crushing poverty indicators. Now, time out. Now, in this part of the article, she's talking about humanitarian aid and all this charity they're alleging to be doing. But just last week, I saw an article. Take a look at this headline. Many American companies are contacting me about gold and lithium, according to Rachna Korhonen, the United States ambassador to Mali, right? So they're putting on this act as if, oh, we're doing so much charity for the community. But according to the ambassador, you know, her phone is ringing off the hook because the American companies are thirsty to gain access to the natural resources, the gold and the lithium and the critical minerals. But you're talking to me about humanitarian aid, but in reality, you're trying to get your hands on the minerals, right? You trying to get some humanitarian aid. You trying to get some economic aid with the minerals, right? That's what it is, right? Yeah, that's what it is. All this whole article is basically pushing a certain narrative that would benefit American companies getting their hands on these, you know, precious resources. That they blowing up the U.S. ambassador to Mali. They're blowing up her phone. Listen, that's the lady right here, some Indian lady, right? They blowing up her phone because they want to get access to the gold and the lithium and the uranium and everything else in between, right? But they talking to us about humanitarian aid, economic aid, but they thirsty for the minerals. Crazy. Anyway, let's continue. Now we know why you're supporting the terrorist groups. Now we know why you want to topple the government with the terrorist groups. Anyway, let's continue. She went on to say, according to people who are allied with the terrorist groups who spoke with me on condition of anonymity, right? So she's speaking to the terrorist groups and their affiliates, right? According to the terrorists, right? That's what she said. According to the terrorists, because she said directly, and I quote, according to the people who are allied with JNIM, the terrorists, according to the people who are allied with the terrorists, who are affiliated with the terrorists, who spoke with me on condition of anonymity, right? So you're not speaking to the government, but you're speaking to the terrorist groups. Throughout this whole article, she has not mentioned a single conversation she had with somebody on the side of the government. She's only been talking to people who are allied or affiliated with the terrorist groups. So that goes to show you're not even interested in the other side of the story or the other side of the conversation. You're only interested in the side and the narrative of the terrorist groups. Anyway, let's continue. According to people who are allied with the terrorist groups who spoke with me on condition of anonymity, the group's leadership has found inspiration in HTS's transformation in Syria, right? They found inspiration from the terrorist groups in Syria and how they became recognized as international leaders. Let's continue. With the support of Turkey, the HTS transformed itself from a dogmatic Islamist militia into a tolerant political military entity during the years it functioned as the de facto government in Syria's northwestern provinces. It stunned the world with the 12-day lightning offensive that ended Bashar al-Assad's 24-year rule, right? So once again, using similar adjectives for the terrorist groups that toppled that government in Syria, right? The lightning offensive, the stunning offensive, right? Anyway, let's continue. Of course, as my sources are well aware, there are many differences between the two situations. For starters, JNIM lacks a powerful backer like Turkey that could provide military aid and training. However, there is some room for optimism that certain aspects of the Syria template could apply. Now, first things first, right? Like I said, we have two terrorist groups currently right now, right? The FLA, which we know is getting assistance directly from Ukraine, working in concert with France, and the FLA is openly allied with JNIM, the Al-Qaeda affiliate, which means that if FLA is getting support from Ukraine and France and other, external actors, that means JNIM is also getting that same support because they're both working in alliance. The April 25th terrorist attacks were carried out by both the FLA, the Azawad Liberation Front, and JNIM working in collaboration. So if FLA is getting support from foreign governments, JNIM is also getting support from those same governments because they are currently under one umbrella, collaborating as one single entity against what they deem as a common enemy. So this lady is lying. Yes, they are getting external support. Yes, they do have powerful backers. How the hell you think they're able to shoot down the damn drone? So not only does this lady not tell the entire story by leaving out very key elements in the narrative and the timeline, but now she's just openly lying and saying that these terrorist groups have no external backers, they have no powerful supporters, they're doing it off the muscle, they're doing it by themselves. Everything is just their own ingenuity and genius by themselves. No help, no assistance, no support. Just straight lying, bro. Just straight lying. You are a freaking liar. Let's continue.
We finally moved from California to Pennsylvania, and it was the best decision we ever made, except for one thing. And I'll get to that part in a second because it almost ruined everything.
Wow.
But first, we left Los Angeles last August, and the change was immediate.
She went on to say, much like HTS, the terrorist group in Syria, JNIM is trying to shed the terrorist label, distance itself from Al-Qaeda, and evolve into a religious insurgency against Mali's government. My sources point to JNIM's ditching of the lethal attacks on civilian soft targets that were typical of its operations a decade ago. One villager in central Mali told me that the terrorist group's representatives are talking much less these days about global jihad and much more about local problems. So once again, trying to legitimize the terrorist groups, saying that the terrorist groups, they don't even attack civilians anymore. The terrorist groups are serving the needs of the population, right? Basically trying to legitimize the terrorist groups, like I said. So in the hypothetical scenario that they do come to power, this is the rollout, right? They're preparing the public. They're getting the public accustomed to seeing these individuals not as terrorists, but as actual leaders and, representatives and ambassadors and statesmen who can actually take the helm of government, right? That's all this is. This whole narrative is preparing the international community to accept these individuals who are openly affiliated with Al-Qaeda, but to accept them as international leaders and recognized authorities. Anyway, let's continue. Following JNIM's recent offensive, evidence has emerged that it is seeking to establish its own version of Idlib. I guess that's the Syrian example in the swaths of northern and central Mali that it. Her analysis is not neutral at all. She's not coming with a neutral analysis at all, right? She's condemning the government. She's wagging her finger at the government. She's not asking who started this instability, right? Which nations are responsible for this instability? How do these terrorist groups sustain themselves, right? Who benefits from the instability? Where do they get their weapons from? Who is providing them with training and logistics and intelligence, right? She's not asking any of the tough questions as it relates to the terrorist groups. All she's doing is wagging her finger at the government, talking about how the terrorist groups are so powerful, they're so amazing, they're effective governors, the population loves the terrorist groups, and in fact, we should install the terrorist groups as leaders, just like in Syria, right? So that's all she's saying here. That's all she's saying. The Malian government is terrible. We need to install the terrorist groups like we did in Syria. Then we can get the critical minerals. Let's continue. She went on to say, the Trump administration is working to repair relations with Mali's government to find common ground on security, counter Russian influence, and gain access to the critical minerals. Now we see the true interests at play. That's probably the only honest analysis she gave in this entire article, this entire toilet paper article. Wipe my booty with the article, trash article. The only legitimate thing she said was the Trump administration is looking to counter Russian influence and gain access to the resources. That's the only honest thing she said. Everything else she said about the terrorists being so stunning and offensive, and the terrorists are effective governors, and the terrorists, we should integrate them into the government. All of that was to lead up to what she said here. The Trump administration is looking to get the critical minerals and counter the Russians. That is the only thing on the table. That's the only interest at play. Everything else is just a narrative to deliver and reinforce that agenda. Now let's continue. The Trump administration is working to repair relations with Mali's government to find common ground on security, counter Russian influence, and gain access to the critical minerals. This includes lifting sanctions on several Malian officials and renewing intelligence sharing, which in 2025 led to a Malian airstrike on the jihadist operative. Now, I already did a video a few months ago where the government in Mali actually debunked that and said that was fake news, right? So-called military cooperation, intelligence sharing. That was fake news, right? We did a video on that. But anyway, take a look at this headline. Mali in the United States, March 12, 2026, a couple months ago. No cooperation in the military sector. As part of the regular political dialogue between the two countries, Mali and the United States had direct exchanges, both with the U.S. diplomatic representation in Mali and with senior U.S. officials from Washington. Press releases and statements following these meetings indicate that these discussions have focused on many topics of common interest, including sub-regional issues, the fight against terrorism, the promotion of economic and trade exchanges, etc., etc. Unlike press articles disseminated by some medias, well-trained sources confirmed to our editorial staff that Mali is neither a claimant nor as a contributor to cooperation with the United States of America in the military sector. Contacted by our editorial staff, officials in office thus refute any allegations relating to an alleged request for cooperation by the Malian government in Bamako, and also deny the prospect of a so-called agreement. They also rejected the disinformation about the resumption of U.S. cooperation. And somehow Ukraine is supporting the terrorist groups, but you claim that the United States is providing cooperation and assistance to the Malian government against the terrorists who are being supported and backed by Ukraine. And we know Ukraine is supported and backed by the United States and France and NATO and everything like that. Like, this lady, man, like I said, it's a reason they gave you that $800,000 grant, because you are definitely carrying water for the establishment. You are definitely carrying water for these Western government. You're not even coming with a coherent argument. You just coming straight with the propaganda, coming straight with the company lines, contradicting yourself at every paragraph. It's totally insane what passes as so-called journalism these days. But anyway, that's what happens when you're not independent and you're a mouthpiece. You're getting paid by certain, shadowy entities behind the scenes, getting government grants and getting, nonprofit grant to support your so-called journalism. But anyway, let's continue. A dialogue involving Mali's government, ungoverned spaces replete with mineral wealth. Oh man, the mineral wealth. We can't forget the mineral wealth, right? Because that's the whole reason for this article. All this nonsense they wrote in this article was just to get closer and gain access to the mineral wealth. That's it. And Generalissimo Goita is standing in the way of them getting access to the mineral wealth. So they need to eliminate him so they can finally gain access to the mineral wealth. Keep in mind that these three nations, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are some of the most resource-rich nations, full of the resources that are needed for the economy for the next 100 years, bro. Like, I'm telling you, we need to hold on to this tight, because I'm telling you, black men could become the most powerful men in the whole world if we are able to get out of this turbulent situation and come out of the other side on a positive note. If we can somehow come out the other side, come through this turbulence on a positive note, right, we could end up becoming the most powerful race of men on the planet, simply due to how powerful these nations are, right? The wealth and prosperity and the resources of these nations. That's why these foreign powers are coveting these nations right now, bro, because they already know. Anyway, let's continue. Mali's quagmire may not pose an immediate risk to the United States of America, but the cocktail of poverty, rapid population growth, vast ungoverned spaces replete with mineral wealth, and ascendant and competing criminal trafficking, separatist and jihadist groups. Notice all those terms, but you refuse to call them terrorists. With access to drones and AI is potentially explosive. So she says that the terrorist groups have access to all type of technology, AI and drones, but how are they getting this out in the desert? You say that it's full of poverty, it's full of this and that, but how are they getting access to this equipment? How come you don't ask these questions? I thought you were a credible journalist. I thought you were one of the best, but you are too stupid to ask basic questions. Anyway, Mali's conflict has already caused enormous suffering in the Sahel. Okay, who is supporting the terrorist groups that's causing the suffering? Why don't you ask the question? Washington ignores it at its own peril and the regions. Now, time out. It's not Washington's responsibility to take care of the region. It's the black man's responsibility. It's the African man's responsibility to take care of the region. But you want the African man to negotiate with the terrorists and integrate the terrorists into the government. Man, listen. This was a lot to take in, man. This was a whole lot to take in. Like I said, the most blatant contradiction. She calls the terrorist groups stunning fighters, but they want to negotiate. Once again, you don't negotiate when you are in a position of victory, right? When you are the one that's winning, you don't negotiate. You go for all-out victory. You go on the offensive. You capitalize on the momentum. You don't stop in your tracks and then try to negotiate. No, that's for the losers, right? Only losers want to come and negotiate and compromise and, you know, strike a deal, right? No, that's for somebody who's losing and getting beat, right? So that's the first contradiction. And number two, the main contradiction is the fact that she's advocating for things that she would never recommend for her own country. She would never recommend for the citizens of the United States of America to live under the domination and the influence of Al-Qaeda. She would never recommend that for herself. Ever in a million years, she would never do such a thing. It would never happen. She would be saying, we need to crush Al-Qaeda. We need to neutralize Al-Qaeda. But when it comes to us, we need to accommodate Al-Qaeda. We need to share space with Al-Qaeda. And she's talking about how, oh, the leader in Syria is such a great example of Al-Qaeda leadership. Like, what? This is too much for me. But like I said, just another addition to the media campaign, the propaganda campaign that's been raging against the AES for about 2 months straight now. I think it's about 2 months straight. The propaganda campaign has been in full swing. The information war has been in full swing. We have random white women telling us we need to integrate the terrorist groups into the government. It's totally insane what's happening in the community. But anyway, I'm not going to be here too long. I didn't even expect the video to go this long anyway. But anyway, it's your boy Nevakari, that's Salim back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Brand new album, Black Winter, pin comment at the top. Brand new music video, 2 a.m. in Venezuela. Check it out. And I'm gone. Peace.
Here's what comes off a bowl of strawberries when you drop this device in the water. These berries are fresh from the store and already rinsed under the tap, but within 10 minutes, the water changes color. What floats to the surface will change how you feed your family. My friend...
We have to break this up. We have to go to war in Syria. We have to take down Assad. Arab Spring happened. There was some energy from the people. I think it was somewhat organic. But then in short order, we came in and we said, we're going to work with the Israelis, but we're also going to have to work heavily with the Sunni population on the ground in Syria to create an uprising. And that's where ISIS came from. We worked directly with Al-Qaeda. Hillary Clinton's emails confirm this. The operations that we were doing to support the so-called Free Syrian Army, and there were some moderates there, but the most effective guys initially were Al-Qaeda and then eventually ISIS. Now, obviously, ISIS got out of control and they started plotting attacks in Europe. They started plotting attacks in America. They took over large swaths of Iraq. So we then had to go back and put out once again the brush fire that we had started and go after ISIS. And that's where I lost my late wife. But Israel was the driving factor in that. We took down Saddam, who was a strong man against Israel. We then had to go in and take out Assad, who was a strong man against Israel as well. And now this is the third phase. We're going now into Iran to take out that strong government for Israel.
Who did we put in charge of Syria?
Oh, we handed that whole, well, again, we screwed the whole thing up so much.
We handed it to a leader of fucking Al-Qaeda.
Yep. He was in ISIS initially. He was in Al-Qaeda initially in Iraq, fighting against us. We had him in jail. Joined ISIS, broke off from ISIS, hand-selected by bin Laden's right-hand man, Ayman Zawahiri, to lead Nusra, and then they rebranded. And this is the number one way to fool Americans as a jihadist is just put on a suit and get a good PR company, and then apparently we'll just believe whatever you say.
There's videos of this guy holding people's heads that he cut off.
Yeah, he's the thug.
He's shaking
he's a brutal
President
terrorist.
Trump's hand.
Yeah, horrible advice. Yep. And so
what the fuck are we doing?
Exactly.
What are we doing?
Yeah, gotta stay focused so when it's in shots, I gotta react. Cause I'm a target, I'm under attack. Grabbing a weapon, I tell her get back. Mission exposed, secrets unfold. Enemy trapping, I'm still in control. Got your boy sitting in Bamako prison, hoping they wish we sending them home. Enemy know that we good under pressure. Been through the thunderous, turbulent storm. Shorty a diamond, I told her she pressure. Hop in a whip and I'm taking her home. Hop in a whip and I'm swerving, I'm smashing. Killing my enemies, one of my passion. Rocking this gold like we in bikini. Feel like the captain, I'm clutching a heater. Feel like they see me, I feel like I'm Saudi or ran up on Yan in the middle of Bamako. Enemy line, they claiming he innocent. Don't do no talking, I gotta move militant. Don't do no talking, I hit him with facts. 1804, bringing it back. 1804 like I'm mother cap heavy. King with the vision, the crown never empty. Top of the mountain, my soldiers defend me. Ducking and dodging the foreign intelligence. Hitting my dance on the DGSE. Dodging they traps, still on my feet. Feeling impeccable, feel like I'm shining. Go to my neck and I'm flooded with diamonds. Go to my neck and I feel like a mess. Feel like a lion, I'm in a savannah. Feel like the king when I'm up in the jungle. Never defeated, I never been humble. Come out victorious every encounter. Money machine, give me help when I count it. Money machine, stack it up in a beat. Heart of a king and I ride for the team. Waited
is clearly politically motivated, not because I think it is, but actually because that's exactly how the Trump administration is explaining it. They are saying that this is a great moment for Cuban democracy, the Cuban Revolution must fall, that the US should use all means necessary to destroy Cuba, to decapitate its leadership and do what, the US has tried to do in Iran, what it tried to do in Venezuela in order to overthrow the Cuban Revolution. And that's exactly what they've said since this indictment has been released. The incident that is referred to is in 1996, during the special period following the fall of the Soviet Union. The US thinks, okay, great, now we're going to be able to achieve our longstanding goal of overthrowing the Cuban Revolution. And so there were many different acts of sabotage and different operations led by the CIA using groups based in Miami to attack Cuba. One of these was a plot by this alleged, what was called the humanitarian group Brothers to the Rescue, Hermanos al Rescate, which supposedly flew unauthorized planes to Cuba to take migrants from Cuba to the United States. And so in 1996, there was an incident where one of these planes was flying in Cuban airspace, and Cuba issued a series of warnings saying this aircraft does not have authorization, you can't fly into our airspace unauthorized, and eventually shot down this plane. So now, 30 years later, an indictment is being brought against Raul Castro and several other individuals for the downing of this aircraft, once again, in Cuban airspace. And I just want to remind people that under Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations, which is a document that the United States is a signatory to, and just international law generally, every sovereign state has the inherent right to defend its territory. So if an unauthorized plane is flying over your territory, you do have the right to defense. And that is exactly what Cuba did in 1996. This indictment is clearly politically motivated.
They know that if the Cubans are successful in their example of being able to provide, as a poor country, the best medical care in the third world to the whole population, because it's an inclusionary system. It's not like we have here, where you have this huge bulk of the population, marginalized. But there, if everybody can have adequate medical care, if the schooling is adequate for all, and remember, Cuba has more doctors and more teachers per capita than any country in the world. And they have succeeded in these areas, and it's all state supported, which means people don't have to put money out for the medical care. Of course, pay the cost indirectly as a whole society, but they don't have to pay the bill in the hospital and so forth. And so that cannot be allowed to stand. It's a very bad example for the United States and for all the third world people in the United States. After all, we're becoming a third world country very fast, if not already,
Already, yeah.
And so there's a very large mass of people out there who can look at Cuba and say, well, if they can do it, and on a per capita income of $2,000, $2,500 a year, where ours is $22,500 a year, what's wrong with our system? I mean, maybe we ought to consider an alternative.
That's why Nicaragua, Sandinista in Nicaragua had to be destroyed.
Exactly. They were a bad example, and that's why Grenada had to be destroyed, because any movement that comes to power with the idea of providing for all the people and of escaping the control of the United States and its economy, let's say the corporations and so forth, then that is bad news here in the United States in the upper circles of power and influence.
Less than the people up in Islamberg, no less than Gulen, is a CIA creation. John McCain, for heaven's sake, was over there with the ISIS officials. It's our creation. We create them. We still direct them. When ISIS warriors are injured in battle, where are they transported? They're transported, for heaven's sake, to Israel. They're treated by the Israelis in Israeli hospitals and brought back to battle.
Well, plenty of the rebels have acknowledged that they've been supported by Israel, and they've thanked Israel for helping them draw. In fact, arms are oftentimes caught. Israeli arms are caught on en route to the rebel groups.
Constitutional democracies in over 20 countries. We manipulated elections in dozens of countries. We created standing armies and directed them to fight. We went after to organize ethnic minorities to encourage them to revolt. The first thing we did in Nicaragua was to go to the Mosquito Indians, who had never gotten along with the other people in Nicaragua very well, and give them more money than they had seen in the entirety of history, and arms and training and rationales and sanctuaries in Honduras, and sent them into Nicaragua to attack, kill, fight, rape, burn, pillage. And this has been a technique the CIA has used in Nicaragua, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Laos, in the Congo, in Iran, Iraq with the Kurds, in different parts of the world. We created, trained, and funded death squads like the Treasury Police in El Salvador. And we've assassinated world leaders, including the United States president in 1963, and I'll get to that in more detail in just a moment. You can never be sure how many people are killed in the jungles of Laos or the hills of Nicaragua, but adding them up as best we can, we come up with a figure of 6 million people killed, minimum figure. It has to be more than that. These things are all done in countries of the third world where the governments don't have the power to force the United States to stop destabilizing the country and brutalizing their people.
All right, folks. Once again, this is Frank. I am your host. This is the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series. This is today's discussion. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe, share, like, as always. So we're here today just to speak about kind of Corinne Dufka. She says she's a so-called human rights advocate. She right, but she support the terrorists. She's a founder of the terrorists. From what she's been saying in her various articles, everything she said was against our great African government, not an African puppet, but against our revolutionary leaders of the Shahid. And she support the terrorists. And in fact, she support the 500 millions that the terrorists have killed. She support it, and just because she was trying to use that means to take the Shahid to the RCC, but that did not work. But the truth here is, no African leader will go to the RCC again. The only way African leader will go to the RCC unless American leaders, right, government go to the RCC, European leaders, government go to the RCC, the French, right, Emmanuel Macron, Tony Blair, right, all those people, if they can go to the RCC, then African leaders will go to the RCC. If those people can go to the Hague, then African leader will go to the Hague. But no more African leader. There will be no day again for African leader to go to the Hague. Because now the truth here is, right, if African leaders are supposed to go to the Hague, why are the corrupt African leaders not going? Why is Tinubu not going? Why is Opombia, right, for Cameroon? Why Farouk? Why all those people are not going? But those people are being supported by the West. But whenever we have an African leader who is actually for Africa, who is actually fighting for Africa, who actually want the betterment for Africa, the West go and kill those people. We just saw in 2011, right, when the United States along with NATO went and killed Gaddafi. In a recent time, if you look at history, All of Africa's great leaders that have been killed directly or indirectly, they were never a dictator. If you look at history, all the African leaders that have been hated by Washington, D.C. and Europe, they were never a dictator. They were never a tyrant. All of them were people that wanted good governance. All of them were people that wanted good governance and good democracy for the African continent. But they went against those leaders and killed them, removed them from power. So then it is 2026, this 21st century. Why would we want to listen to the United States to come and tell us this government is good for us? Didn't we know that Kwame Nkrumah was good for us? But Washington, D.C. did not want Kwame Nkrumah. Didn't we know that Thomas Sankara was good for us? But Washington, D.C., Europe, they did not want Thomas Sankara. Didn't we know that Patrick Lumumba was good for us? But Washington, D.C., Europe, they did not want Patrick Lumumba. So who are they? Who gave them the audacity to come and tell us who is good for us now? When we know the people that were good for us, they sanctioned those people, they removed those people, they killed those people, they didn't want those people in power. Who didn't know that? Amilcar Cabral of Guinea-Bissau was not a good leader for Africa. But they didn't want to kill Amilcar Cabral. So today, they should still come to us with their journalists, with their writers, and come and tell us who is good, who is not good. Those days are over. Those days are gone. And in this 21st century, any leader, any nation, any continent that does not want to do fair share business with Africa, we don't care about you. We don't even care who you are. We tell you bamboos. We tell you go. We don't do business with you. We don't care. As long as you have an evil plot against Africans' empowerment, because African empowerment is not as white racism or white empowerment. African empowerment just means fair share, fair business. You live your life, we live our life. Everybody enjoy. Everybody have fun. And nobody going to go subjugate anybody. Nobody putting sanction on anybody. And nobody carrying war and bumping people and say, oh, they person get it right. We don't care for those things. Those are white supremacy. So at this point, at this critical junction, we don't care. You could be whosoever. As long you have an evil plot, an evil thought about Africa, Africa will shut you down. We will not do business with you. That's the time have reached. The time have reached. We don't care no more. Your sanction, your world, it have come to that point. We are new to it now. We don't even care about your sanction. We don't even care about your threatening war. We don't even care about, hey, whether you will take your financial aid. In fact, it is those financial aid, those IMF World Bank that subjugate Africa. At this time, we don't even care about your NGO. To hell with your NGO. Take them out of Africa. We don't even want them there because those NGO, they are there on a mission to protect the West against Africa. We know what Leopold told a missionary. We know what missionary means. Missionary just means someone who on a mission. Missionary is not any good title. Missionary is not any someone that can save you. Missionary can save themselves, can protect themselves. They are on a mission. They are on a journey. Whenever you're on a journey, you are on a mission. Whenever you're on a journey, you are on a mission to accomplish something for you and where you came from, or someone sent you. Whenever you're on a mission, you are carrying a, when you are a missionary, you are carrying a mission. You are on a mission. So missionary is not a damn good thing to say, oh, missionary coming. Oh, what have mission? In fact, it was missionary that colonized Africa. It was missionary that enslaved African people. It was missionary that started killing our leaders systematically because they were there to collect information and send it to Washington, D.C. and Europe. So we know them now. We see them now. We are aware now. Anyway, folks, this is today's presentation. Thank you for tuning. Thank you for being here. Share, like, subscribe. I will see you people next week. Peace. And to Connie, let me say this again. Connie, Dufka, or whosoever. And let me repeat this to you again. You are being warned not to go on the African continent. You will not get beat foot like elephant if you don't go there. Sit in your home. Sit in America here and enjoy yourself. All right? Sit here and keep communicating with the T group. Sit here and keep communicating with the terrorist group in Africa. Sit here, keep communicating, get your information, and keep writing your nonsense trash article. All right? Just sit here. But the day you dare try and sit on the African, you land on that African continent, any part of Africa. Once the plane says you have arrived and you touch your foot on our ground, on the African soil, oh my God, your legs, you will come back to America with big legs, like elephant. And I'm telling you this, you will go to all the hospitals in America here. You will never be healed. In fact, the more they will keep cutting your foot out, they will keep cutting it off, and the more it keep growing. They will keep doing surgery upon surgery, the more it keep growing. And the more it will keep growing. It will never go back to a number. So don't go again to the African continent. Sit here and nothing will happen to you. Sit here, nothing will happen to you. Now, I'm speaking strictly to nature. Don't go there. I'm not speaking to white Jesus. I'm not speaking to white Jesus. I'm speaking to black Jesus, and I'm speaking to nature. I'm speaking to our ancestors, our forefathers. Don't even try it to go on the African continent. Don't go there. Because with your mindset, you are a devil. Corinne Dufka. With your mindset, you are a demon. You are a devil. You are devilish. Okay? You are synagogue of Satan. Don't go on the African continent. I'm telling you, if you love yourself, you love your family, you want to live in peace, you want to live painless without no pain, do not go on the African continent. Sit in America, keep talking to the T group, keep talking to the terrorists, okay? And you keep writing your nonsense and you keep writing your trash. Look, we have come to a point, right? This is not a time again that we're going to go and start praying to white Jesus. Those days over. We are calling on the name of our forefather. Now we are smart. Okay? The reason why you colonize us, the reason why you enslave us, because we were so dumb and stupid, we left our practices, we left our belief, and we think that what we believe in, what we practice was lesser God. We left it, and then we jump beyond white Jesus. We jump beyond Caesar Borgia. Caesar Borgia, a rapist who raped his mother. We jump beyond him and then start worshiping him, worshiping another man's ancestor, worshiping another man's forefather who was a rapist. Worshiping another man. And those men couldn't listen to us, couldn't answer our prayer. How can a slave and a slave master pray to the same God? We were so dumb and stupid. But now we have come to that realization. No more again. We have come back and we are calling on the name of our forefather, our ancestor, our own black Jesus, our own African Jesus, our own African God that can speak our languages, that can understand us, that see our tears. White man, Jesus will not see our tears. The black Jesus, the black Messiah, our ancestor, our forefather, they see our tear, they see what in our heart. When we communicate, it gets straight to them because we are connected to them. We are spiritual. So I'm telling you, the day you try it and you get on the African continent, you're going to have a big legs like elephant, and that legs will never ever go back to a normal position. You will spend money and spend money and spend money and spend money. You will never go back to a normal position. So I'm telling you, do not go on the African continent again. If you step on that soil, right, you're going to have a big leg. Your 2 foot will be big like elephant, and you will never ever recover from it. This is how we're going to do it now. We're going to be, we will first, how they call it, both spiritually and physically with pain and education. Okay, so we will go spiritually as well now. That's the place now we have come. You guys have pushed us to the wall too much. You have pushed us to the wall, and we have come to that point now. We are saying enough is enough. This wall can no longer move now. You move up, move up, move up, move up. Now we came to the wall. We can no longer move. And even if this wall can move, we are not moving again. We are going back to our spiritual belief. So if you think, oh, it's just some boss sitting behind camera or just some boss sitting behind a computer, he's talking that, try it. And then you will know if it is just some boss sitting behind computer. Go on the African continent. Nobody going to just go there. Nobody going to Do it. Just go there. All right? You will meet up with the ancestor there. Go there. Put your foot on our soil. Put your foot on our soil. Then you will know if it was just some random boy sitting behind TV or behind camera or behind computer, just ranting and talking nonsense. Try it. Go there. And that day, you will sit there and say, oh, I should have known, I should have listened. Go there. Sit here and communicate with the T group. Don't go there. If you love yourself and if your family love you, they should tell you, don't go there again. We are no longer asking white Jesus for forgiveness. No. No longer we are asking white Jesus for forgiveness. Now we are speaking directly to our ancestor, spiritually. That's what we're doing now. So a hint to a white is quite sufficient. We are not going to say again, oh, white Jesus, forgive these people, let them come to their senses, or what Corinne Dufka is saying. No. We done with that. It's finished. We done with that. No more.
The white power structure, because that's all we have in America. And the white power